And I worked with this amazing coach, Michelle Bronson, here in LA, who in the first session, dude, she called him the man. And you embody this part. I'm like, yeah, I'm the man. And, I'm saying third person, listen, if I didn't exist, Pete is a total loser without me.
I had certain strengths, and those strengths they desired in me, and they had certain things about them that I desired in them. So it was like two lacks looking to try to find wholeness. And then I realized, but those areas now are the parts that I have to work on myself. So now that I show up differently for me, because I want to break the pattern.
And she's like, oh man, he's like the man. And the minute she said that, and this voice in my head was like, I am the fucking man. And he like came back in full force. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to get this dude. That's not why I'm here. And, after doing a lot of work with her, she was like, listen, you got to love the man. At some point, stop going there. Realize that you're just killing yourself. And then there's this whole thing about alchemizing that into love and other things. Fascinating topic. But when I learned about what's actually happening in my body and how I'm doing it, I'm making myself suffer, I'm killing myself, why would I do that?
Hey, Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned, because we have some more great content coming soon. What if the dream you've been chasing, money, status, recognition, was actually the very thing keeping you small? Hello, beautiful and amazing people. Welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host, Todd Cave, and today my guest is Peter Kennedy, an entrepreneur who sold his tech company for $140 million and felt completely empty. That collapse sent him from boardrooms into sweat lodges in the Amazon, through psychedelic medicine, somatic therapy, and even a 10-day darkness retreat. In this episode, we break down the hidden war inside men, the achiever the world sees versus the starved inner child within. We'll explore why most men underachieve, the addiction to success, the real root of survival mode, and the practices that can unlock your highest potential. If you've ever felt like you're running faster but getting nowhere, this conversation will stop you in your tracks. Stay tuned, because what Peter shares today could rewrite the way you see success, healing, and yourself.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Peter, A very warm welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today, mate?
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I'm doing well, man. I'm very excited to be here and talk to you. So, and it's so funny, the intro that you gave me, it's so funny. Like, so many people would be like, "Oh, he made 140 million and he lost everything. Poor guy," you know. And so, I always chuckle whenever I hear that because it's true, you know. But it's a little different than what people probably think.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I have you here because, like, you know, I find that most people, both men and women, you know, like we're taught how to just to go to school, get a job, become successful. Some people actually do become very successful. And then you realize through stories like in the media where they were multimillionaires or sometimes even billionaires, they commit suicide, they go to alcoholism, prostitution, gambling, you know what I mean? Some people blowing hundreds of thousands per week, etc. And, you know, I found it quite interesting that you you were very successful. You exited your company for 140 million. But then for most people would think, oh gosh, this is when the glory days have started. But for you, it was a completely different situation, a story. So I said, okay, you know what? This is someone I definitely want to bring on the show because I want to show people that what we've been taught in terms of these material things, they don't actually give you happiness, or they can bring you material success, but do you have inner success? So, you know, we have an opportunity to hear from someone who's been there, done it, lost everything internally, and they had to rebuild themselves and doing something else completely different. So yeah, I am also very excited to talk to you and to learn some things from you because clearly you were quite successful in your career, and you know I am an entrepreneur as well. So I think you know it's always good to talk to people that have achieved certain things because there's always something to learn.
Yes,
So
always do.
so you've said a temescal ceremony in the jungles of Brazil shattered your ego and rewired your identity. What exactly happened in that experience?
Yes, it was a wild experience. So I found myself in the jungles of Brazil with my wife, and during COVID, early on in COVID, you know, schools were canceled, and we have 5 children, and so we had 5 kids that my wife had to teach, you know, school for. My kids are like running down the street at 8 a.m. Like, I'm not going to school. I mean, it was a total shit show, and you know, I was working the whole time. I was just deep in work, and so I couldn't help that much. And you know, one day she woke up and she poured herself a screwdriver. And this is someone who really never drank in her life, me in college, but not after that. She was, had so many kids. We had so many kids. She felt really good. And within 6 months, she had just fallen deep into alcohol. Went to rehab, that didn't work. And her therapist was like, listen, I'm not helping you. I wouldn't recommend this to many people, but you should go down to South America and do iboga, which is a plant medicine. Yeah, it's the root of a bark of a tree, or the bark of a root of a tree in Gabon, Africa, called the iboga plant. And you take it and you trip for 24 hours. I mean, it's called the Stern Father. It is brutal. And she's like, will you come with me? And I'm like, I'll come with you to make sure these people don't kill you, but I'm not doing that, dude. That sounds horrible. And at that point in my life, I was so consumed by fear and control, right? So I'm running this company. We had offices all around the world. My wife is, you know, losing her mind through alcohol, putting her life in danger, putting, you know, our kids in danger at certain times. And so what does that do? It creates control. Whenever your life is out of control, you control everything you possibly could. So for me, that's all I really tried to do. Is I was consumed with fear and just trying to control everything. I would go down there, and in order to do iboga, you have to do a ton of work, spiritual work, in order to prepare yourself for this 24-hour experience. And you do that twice, by the way, 2 24-hour experiences. And the first day we did this temescal, which was this sweat lodge, dangerous, dude. It was like 20 of us packed in this tiny little hut that we had built in the jungle, hot as hell already. And then they keep bringing in these stones. They're called grandmothers. And every 30 minutes, the door opens, more stones come in. Dude, this place was an inferno. I thought I was going to die. Hit my breaking point at one point where I think I must have passed out or something. And I was no longer in the Temescal. I was having a spiritual experience. And I'm in this open field, night sky, just all around me, just stars everywhere. And I see this Native American walking on a horse towards me. And he was this powerful dude, just walked up with his horse, holding this giant spear, and just looked at me and said, "Fear is worse than death, and that is why I fear no death." And those words, dude, shattered me. Like my life of fear just came so apparent. And so I became so aware of it. And I sat in that stillness for another hour and a half. Like, didn't even know I was in the Temescal. Just wasn't even there until someone pulled me out of there, dragged me out of the Temescal, and was like, "What's wrong with you, man?" And yeah, it was this moment of just like a punch in the face, just a realization of where I am. And that was my first spiritual experience I ever had. I can tell you what happened afterwards, which is even crazier. But that was the moment of my first awakening.
Wow. I have done Temescal a few times, and I don't know if the way you did it was similar to the way I did it, but when we did it, they call it doors. So you would go in and you would say, honestly, I can't remember how long we were in there for, but to give people an idea, this is like, I try not to exaggerate, probably about 40 times hotter than a sauna, right? So, and the thing is that there's water vapor inside there that's so thick that you actually have to have your head in your lap in order to even breathe, right? Or have your head down by your feet, but you're basically sitting down in a crunch position. So what Peter's talking about, I get. I remember that on the third door, because we did it 3 times. We did 4 doors that night.
Yeah, it's 4 doors usually.
Like the third door was even harder than the fourth one. And I completely like broke where like I crawled out of the Temescal, like literally on my hands and feet. And I do not know how I did a 4th door, but I was not even there. Like my mind was gone. So I can tell people for sure from experience what Peter's talking about, where he like almost left his body. I've had an experience like that because it was so hot that my brain hurt. It was that hot, right?
Listen, a sauna evaporates the sweat on your body. Temescal, it's like a blanket around you. It suffocates you. And there are heavy wool blankets covering the top of this. And there is no escape from the humidity. And then you have this fire, which are these stones that have been in a fire for, I don't know, they were in there for like 8 hours. And they're brought in through each door. Yeah, dude, it is molten hot in there. And someone actually passed out during it. And there was no like, pull this person out. They just poured water on him, sat him back up, and then it continued. And I was like, oh my God, these people are crazy. Even if you pass out, you're staying in the Temescal. And it was terrifying. So I'm sitting there just consumed with fear. I was like, I'm going to die in here. This is not safe. And and so that was, so the Temescal happens, right? And so we leave and we go into the main building and we sit in this semicircle. And the shaman was this guy who just had something that he sees through things that no one else can see. He's one of those magical people. And we're going one by one telling our story. And people are talking about their experiences and he's seeing through them, telling them truths about themselves that they didn't even know at the time. And people are crying. Some people are just said they saw ancestors. I mean, it was magical. By the time it got to me, I was like, how am I even going to explain what happened? Like, I saw a Native American on a horse. He came and told me that fear is running my life. What am I even how am I going to explain this to these people? And like, I'm comfortable public speaking. Like, I've talked in front of huge conferences and, boardrooms, whatever. And when it got to me, dude, the words weren't there. And the minute I reached for those words, the dam burst and I just started bawling. My wife is sitting next to me. She had in 20 years never seen me cry, not once. It just wasn't part of my emotional wheelhouse. And
wow.
Yeah, and here I was bawling in front of all these people. And once I finally got the last word out, I'm not even sure what I said. Instead of giving me this deep introspection about my journey, the shaman just looked at me, nodded, and then turned to the next person. And I was like, dude, what? Like, that's all I get? Like I just bared my soul, cried in front of my wife for the first time, and you give me nothing. And, you know, the circle finished, and I'm sitting there just like pissed and embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I even did that. And he walked right up to me and he put his hands on my shoulder and he said, "You were born in February." And I'm like, "Yes." Dude didn't know who I was. And he said, "What day?" And I told him. And he said, "I too was born on that day in February. And we can see beyond the matrix."
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm still processing what he's saying to me. And then he looked at me and he said, "You must surrender and learn to release control." And with that, dude, I just exploded again. Like everything he said was true. I instantly, I felt the tension that I'd been holding my whole life. Just my abs always contracted, my shoulders always tense. I mean, I was holding my life with just bare knuckled intensity all the time. And that shattered me again, dude. It was just like one shattering after another. And yeah, and then later that week we did the Temesca or the Iboga, which was a mind blowing experience. But yeah, you know, when you meet those people there that have something that they see beyond what we see, these people are just magical, and he was one of those people.
I've definitely had sat with shaman who've been like that with me as well. So I can concur that these things happen, and they've happened to me as well. So what was life like before that awakening? What cracks had already started to show beneath your success?
I mean, no cracks have shown before that, dude. I was the master of my universe, man. It's like
Rock solid.
Yeah, rock solid. If something was going to happen, it was because of me. Like, you know, my wife was at the time way more spiritual than me, and she's like, "Dude, just the universe will take care." And I'm like, "Dude, the universe isn't doing anything. Like, I am the reason why this whole thing's being successful." And I didn't realize it at the time, but my entire self-worth was tied into the success of this company. You know, it was tied into the success of just being successful. When I was a kid, you know, I wanted to be a business person. My grandfather was super successful. He was this phenomenal businessman, and I looked up to him, and I chased him my whole life. And you know, as Tagger got more and more successful, that was my last company. You know, I realized that I couldn't allow this to fail. And so, if you were my employee, dude, I mean, my employees liked me. It was an amazing company. But if you got in my way, dude, I was going to run you over, like straight up. And if you weren't doing your job, I would come in and do your job for you until you learned how to do it. And we'd either keep you if you figured it out, or I'd fire you instantly. And there was a joke that, like, if Pete comes in and does your job, you're not going to be around much longer. And I wore that as like a badge of honor. I was like, "That's right. I'm a good businessman. I'm so dedicated." No, dude, I was terrified of not being successful, you know? And yeah, and so there were no cracks, man. I was tight. Like, everything was just organized, and my life, now my home life was out of control because my wife was, you know, an alcoholic and, you know, just going off the rails. But that even forced me to control everything else in my life even harder. And I did that with the company. And it worked, you know. We were successful, but, you know, at what cost?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious then, when did you first realize that money and achievements weren't filling the emptiness you carried?
Yeah. So we had grown Tagger into this massive company. We had offices all around the world. We had some of the biggest clients in the world. We had big brands and agencies, Amazon and Estee Lauder, and all these big global holding companies, advertising agencies were our clients as well. And again, offices. We had an office in Africa. I mean, like, it was crazy. When we sold the company, and we sold it to a company called Sprout Social, which is at the time still is one of the biggest social media analytics company. The due diligence on that process almost killed me. Like, it was 6 months of just, you know, 18-hour days, dude. It was intense selling this company to this publicly traded company. But the minute we sold the company and the signatures were in, I was like waiting for that moment to happen where, you know, all my self-worth and all the self-love that I was really searching for my entire life. You know, I never felt very good about myself. Horrible student. Adults just told me I was kind of at school especially, that I was just kind of a troublemaker and wasn't worth much. And I believed it. I really believed that. And so I think I was trying to prove to myself and to the world that I was, worthy of the love that, I was longing for. And the minute I won, the minute I sold the company, yeah, dude, it all came down, man. I was just, I was so depressed. And I realized that everything I had hoped for, no one cared. Like, my family was proud of me and stuff, but like, no one cared that I sold my company. We're all in our own bubbles. Like, literally, it's just another day for everyone else. And I thought that I would have this feeling of like accomplishment, and I didn't, and that's the thing we talked about it earlier. Like, yeah, some people are chasing the money. I think everyone's chasing the money to a degree, but I think there's a layer below that people are really chasing, and it's this accomplishment. Keeping up the Joneses. In our society, we see it on social media. Everyone's on private jets and everyone's doing all these amazing things. We all want to be like them. We all want the money and all that stuff. But really, underneath all that, what we're looking for is validation and self-love. And when you accomplish something like starting and selling a company, which is one of the hardest things in the world to do, and that doesn't give you the self-love that you want, dude, then there is nothing that can. And that's what pulled me into that depression. I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally screwed. If that didn't do it, what else could? And so yeah, but then I'll tell you the story. Literally, like 2 days later, my wife's uncle, who is this gangster spiritual guru coach in Ashland, Oregon, he's like this well-known guy up there, arrived on my front doorstep. I hadn't seen the guy in years. Arrived on my front doorstep and looked at me, and he was like, dude, you're miserable. And I'm like, miserable. And I was embarrassed to say it because I just sold my company. And he saw right through me, and he wasn't like, dude, blowing smoke up my ass. He's like, dude, you are deep in a hole. And I'm like, so deep. And he's like, listen, do my 5-week course, and give me free business advice. And we'll just swap that. And I was like, done. And that was the start of kind of my next leveling up in terms of, my another spiritual awakening, and just, finding, the true self that was hidden inside of me. So, but yeah, that whole process before the 5-week program was, it was just devastating. And again, it's embarrassing to say that because people are like, dude, you sold your company for 140 million. Like, what, but there's something way beyond money that is rooted in self-love.
Yeah, I agree with you because I find that we have this conditioning where it's almost like the carrot in front of the donkey sort of like ideology that we have, where we keep thinking that the closer we get to the carrot, or actually if we get the carrot, then we'd be happy. But then there's another carrot to get, and you're like, oh, well, that's a bigger carrot. So you keep chasing these carrots, and it's almost akin to like the grass isn't always green on the other side. So it's like, you on top of the world, and then it's like, there's no trophies, there's no awards, there's no pat on the back, there's like silence. And it like, well, what was all of that for, And you alluded to it a little bit. So let's dive into that, because like you said, it was your childhood. And from my experience, your childhood is like super important in terms of your beliefs, your identity, what you think you are, etc. So how did your childhood shape the high-performing identity you built before your awakening?
Yeah, definitely. And, I had this grandfather who was very successful businessman. Like, and I looked up to him, dude. I chased him my entire life. Like, that's who I wanted to be. And I assigned meaning to that. We assign meanings. That's what human beings do. We assign meanings to certain things. And I assign meaning of self-worth, and worth in society equals success. Once you have that, then you get this thing. And my parents were amazing. They were like hardworking. Like my father worked his ass off all the time. And, he was the most honest man you'd ever meet, and had so much self-discipline. If he wanted to do something, he would just do it and not think about it. He would just focus on that and just do that. as a kid, dude, I was just like this little dopamine craving, little shitbag. Probably had like deep ADHD, but I got tested a million times when I was a kid, but they were testing for how stupid I was because, they didn't really have ADHD when I was a kid. And I couldn't sit in class. I just couldn't sit there. These teachers were talking about things I just didn't care about. And instead of looking at me and trying to help me, they saw me as a problem. And to them, I was a problem. I was like this kid who couldn't sit still and wasn't really into what they were talking about. Right. And I went to this Catholic school, and I had a couple amazing teachers who were just like, they were probably like me as a kid, but majority of the teachers were just brutal. And I had a teacher when I was about 40 years old. I'm about 49 now, but when I was 40 years old, my mom was at church, and this woman walked up to her and was like, "Are you Mrs. Kennedy?" My mom was like, "Yeah." Like, I was Peter's teacher when he was in like 5th grade. And, I abused your child, and I've held it all these years, and and she's crying, and my mom's like, "Oh, he's fine." I'm like, you could have at least given her a little, like, make her feel bad a little bit. But, this woman had held it this whole time. And what she said to my mom was, I have your son now. He's my son. And he's just like your son was. And I treated your son horribly. And I just couldn't imagine someone doing that to my child. And, that kind of epitomized, like, that was my childhood. It's like, it was school. I was just so I always felt like the idiot. Grade school, high school, college, I felt like the dumbest kid in the class everywhere I went, until I went to business school. And I was into it. I was like, this is fascinating. I had my first kid the 5th day of school, and I was so into it. I would just sit there and read everything. And I got like straight A's. I'm like, oh, maybe I am kind of smart, like with this stuff, because I'm into it, And so yeah, I think that shaped this feeling of unworthiness. I think eventually I just believed the teachers, and felt like a shitbag.
Yeah, this is why I talk a lot about fears and traumas on my show, because your fears and traumas come from your childhood years, and they are what create and forge your identity. And these identities create a lot of self-sabotage patterns that you're subconsciously not really aware of, in terms of like with friends or partners that you get with, and even doing business, like you have certain types of repeat patterns and failures and stuff. In your case now, those things forged you to be even better. So you overachieved, but there were still parts of you that, while they were your strengths, they were a bit of your weakness at the same time. So you went to like the complete opposite polar extent, where like instead of having extreme failure, you had extreme success, right?
Totally. Like, why was I doing that? Yeah, I was doing it partially to prove to all those people that I was better than them, that I was better than what they thought I was. Every day I'd wake up and I'd think about them every single day, every day. I'd think about all those people that, told me I was just like out of my mind. And, I mean, like when you start a company, you'll get a million people telling you it's a horrible idea. And they're probably right, but,
True.
But those are the people I thought about every day. Like, it was like this religious. Now I wake up and I do breathwork meditation. Back then I would wake up and I'd lie in bed and I would think about each one of those people. And it made me angry, and it just drove.
I believe you. I honestly believe you, because I have a couple of mates that are quite wealthy as well. And what you said is exactly what they said, that one of the things or the components that made them successful is that all the people that rejected them said they're a failure. They would never do it. They would think about them. Whenever they felt tired, whenever they felt like low, they would think about those people, and they would work harder, to the point sometimes where like their body would collapse and they would literally fall asleep at the desk, to that level. So guys, what Peter is saying here is no hyperbole. These are the traits and the characteristics of people that get extreme success.
Well, yes, but I don't think you need that in order to be successful. Like, I know plenty of people who are successful who don't have that drive. They came from a place of self-love, and they, so I don't think you need that. I think it's one way to get there, and it's very motivational, but
I
yeah,
agree.
I think you can get there another way, I just, that wasn't my way. It was funny too. I was years later, before I sold my company, we were pretty successful. And my business school asked me to come back there. I went to Kelly School of Business at IU for my MBA. And I was asked to go back and give a talk, right? And I'm on the panel with a couple of people. And there was this, and my company was like software. It's called SaaS, software as a service. And it was for influencer marketing. And so big brands were paying us a ton of money every month on these contracts to, annual contracts to use our platform to find influencers and reach out to them. And we report on everything. Very complicated workflow. But listen, we weren't like changing the world, right? I mean, it was like SaaS influencer marketing. And I'm up on stage with this woman who was much younger than me. And in the crowd were all venture capitalists. Like that's who the audience was. VCs in the Midwest, and then a bunch of students and some other people. But it was like a VC audience. And they were like, why are you doing this company? And I was honest. I was like, dude, financial success for my family, like just, that was kind of it, my own personal gain, stuff like that. For my employees as well. I mean, it wasn't just all selfish, but I was just being honest. And they asked the woman next to me who had technology that would scan beehives and farms to count how many bees were in there. They used infrared sensors and really helping the planet. Like, you need that. And her first words were, unlike Pete, who's just trying to destroy the world or something like that,
Oh, gosh.
I'm trying to save the world. And listen, I'm always so nice and gentle with people, especially up on stage. Dude, I destroyed her. I was like, when you get older and you start to get some age on you, you'll realize that I just hammered her. And it got very awkward for everyone in the room. But, what is that? Okay. So I'm coming from a place of lack, right? Because I go to school. School for me was this negative place, right? I was always the idiot in the room. And then I have this person telling me that I am the idiot in front of all these people. And yeah, it was like a trigger, and, people who are listening, it's like, there's trauma, right? There's big trauma, there's little trauma. It doesn't really matter. Like Bessel van der Kolk says this so well. It's like, I don't care if you saw a car accident and saw someone die in front of you, or, a spider walked into the room and bit you. It doesn't matter what the event is. It's how your body processed that experience. And were you able to take the shock, shake it off, and be like, okay, I process, move on? Or did it stay inside your body? And, there are certain things that stayed inside my body and what drove me. So, you can't really compare traumas with each other because it doesn't matter what the trauma is. It's how you process it as a human being. So,
Absolutely. Everyone's trauma is different, but I say to people that it is all the same, but relative. It's just difficult. So what is difficult for me may be easy for you. What's easy for you is difficult for me, but it's all difficult for that person, So let's talk a little bit about the shadows behind the success. So after your $140 million exit, you've described experiencing a collapse. What part of you fell apart, and what did you do what did you discover in that collapse?
yeah, and I had already done a lot of personal growth. I mean, I had, done a bunch of plant medicine journeys. I had worked with a number of coaches. I mean, I personal growth was my thing. I was deep into it. And, I thought I was good. And then when I sold the company and everything I had hoped I would get, none of it came true. Yes, I fell into this deep depression. And depression wasn't something I had felt very often. I could feel rage and excitement and all these different things, but hopelessness and despair and all, those were things I just never allowed myself to feel, because I was just always driven by this stuff. And when I did feel depressed, it was like a tidal wave hitting me. And so when my wife's uncle Rod appeared out of nowhere and said, do my 5-week course, I was like, I'm all in. Now, his 5-week course, dude, this guy is a gangster and he takes everything so seriously. I had to sign a contract when I did this, 5-week course. First of all, I wasn't paying him. We were just exchanging like my business advice for this. And he's like, here's your contract. And I had to sign it. Now, if I missed one thing, because you had to meditate twice a day, you had to journal twice a day, I had to meet with him all the time, and there was just a ton of stuff during this 5-week program. If I missed one, the entire contract was ripped up, and we'd have to renegotiate everything. And
Wow.
I realized later on is, listen, transformation takes dedication. Period. People are like, yes, I want to change. Well, they want to change, but they don't want to do the work to change. And Rod had seen this a million times, and he's like, he had no patience for it, And I had no patience for it because I didn't really care. I was so deep in a hole. I was like, dude, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so that's what I would do. I would wake up and I'd listen to his tapes, and I would do his meditation, and then I would journal. And he gave me prompts. Now, journaling, the way we did it was in AI. I trained AI to be my spiritual guide. I was into Kabbalah at the time. I was into Buddhism. I was into all these different things. And I said, I want you to be my guide through the lens of all these different, philosophies and thoughts. And it did. It was amazing. And so it would reflect back to me. In the evening, I would meditate more and I would journal again. But in the morning, basically what I was doing, I was living from vision. I was saying, how do I want to feel today? What are the things I want to experience today? What do I want to think today? All these different things. By the end of the night, then you would look back and be like, okay, well, what went well today? What didn't go well today? Not to like harp on it, but almost like a post-mortem. It's like, so you don't repeat the same patterns that you did that for the next day. But when you wake up and you start to live from vision, I want to be happy. I want to feel love. I want to feel all these different things. After a few days, you start experiencing that versus waking up in complete chaos, which most people do. And that was the shift for me, realizing that if I spend every morning focused on how I want to feel, retrain the chemistry in my body, we're just a chemical reaction, retrain the chemistry in my body to what I want to experience, dude, you're going to experience that. What you focus on grows, right? And it's how it works. And I can go deeper into that whole practice and what we did, but that is what brought me out of my deep depression. I fell into this area of expansion, which is now, yeah, it's what I do now. It's like I do the same practice I did in that 5-week program. I do it every day, and we do it as a company now, my new company. So,
Wow, very, very cool. So you've spoken about success addiction. How does it show up in daily life, especially for men?
yeah, well, listen, we fall into these identities. Okay, so and these identities are really traps. So so you're a coach, right? You're a coach. You're a fitness coach as well, and so if what does that mean for you? Well, it means that one, you have to be fit, right? It means that if your clients aren't getting better, what are you? Well, you're failing. You're not going to be a successful coach. So by being in that identity that you've created, okay, there are certain rules that you have to follow, and to be successful in that identity means that you have to accomplish these certain things. So really, the goalpost that you have is set in stone. So as long as you're sitting in that identity, then your future is determined. I'm a businessman. I'm a CEO. What does that mean? I have to be successful. If not, I'm a failure in that identity. And once we become that identity, dude, that identity, all it wants to do is stay there. Like, your identity becomes this living force within you, and it doesn't want you to fail, because then that means it would go away. And so it does everything it can to be successful in that identity. Now, the reality is that identity is not a fixed destination. Once you become something, you don't stay that. You want to move beyond that identity, right? But all of us, dude, we all get stuck in that identity. And that's the hamster wheel you're talking about. Because once you're in that identity, successful business person, what you realize is the goalpost keeps moving. As soon as you get close to the finish line, dude, get the biggest deal, get the biggest milestone, sell your company. It doesn't matter. Literally the next day, the milestone moves again because they didn't give you what you thought it would. Never. All these milestones, they don't give you anything, And so then, if I sell a bigger company, if I make a bigger deal, if I have more clients as a coach, right? Then I'll finally feel, self-worth. And it's because we're stuck in these identities and we're unaware of it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, so I recently had a bit of a download that I'm going to share here. And I've come up with something that I'm going to apply in my life and also teach my students. I calling it the HIH tenets for success in life. The H stands for hunger, which is always be hungry for life and success, obviously. The next part now to keep you in line is integrity. Because now integrity is everything is built on. Do what you say you're going to do, be honest, tell people I can't do it. Integrity, basis of everything. And the next part is humility. Because when you become successful, it's easy for you now to basically get on like you were never at the bottom and you look down on people. So if you practice the HIH formula, hunger, integrity, and humility, and you put those together, I think it gives you a very good balance. And this came to me literally 2 weeks ago because I did a huge macro dose of magic mushrooms.
That'll
and
do it.
yeah, and I was sitting out here on my computer working, and it was like that because because I'm a coach, I just exactly what you said. Because I said, but Todd, okay, things are growing for you. Like you were about to hit 100 numbers in your platform. You're having great guests coming on. You have people all over the world. You've got a lot of clients now. Okay, like we need to sort of like refocus now and keep being that person that you are, right? And then it came to me and I was like, first, that's the next step because with every level now, it requires a different focus. Just like how you were saying, when you get to a certain level, then there's another goalpost. So for me now is about talking, walking, and being the HIH. Hunger for life and success, practice integrity, and remaining humble, humility. So yeah.
Dude, I love that, man. And I love how you found that, right? Because when you're on psychedelics, what it does is it shuts down your default mode network. Just all those things that tell you, I need to go do this and I need to do this and I need to be in this identity, that all just goes away. And you're accessing parts of your brain that creates creativity and really you're tapping into a higher self, right? With all those identities just kind of being dampened down. And that's the truth that came to you. And that truth is real, right? Because yeah, when you're hungry, and now the question is, what are you hungry for? And why are you hungry for that? Right. Whenever you do things with integrity, that's the key, right? Because you know, for me, with our new company now, it's not about like we want to, we're not hungry for money, right? What we're hungry for is to help people, and we want to use our platform to do good in the world. And Rod taught me this word that is stuck with me, and we think about it every day. It's seva, service, selfless acts of service. And every line of code we write is for someone else so that they can help their clients. And every time we get on a sales call with someone, we don't care if they sell or buy our platform. We just really don't. It's if we can have a human connection with this person and help them in some way. If we can make them laugh that day, done, we win, right? Now, if we can give them our platform so they can help their clients, that's even better. But really, it's all about service. And I think that's the humility that you're talking about. It's like, how can I, anytime that you're like stuck, by the way, like there are times where you can't always be expanding, right? It's contraction, expansion. It's just the breath of the universe, right? And so some people call it depression, call it, contraction, whatever you want. But if you ever are feeling like that contraction, that depression, dude, get out and help somebody. Walk out in the street and carry someone's bag across the street for them, or just do a selfless act. Instantly, your depression goes away. Just how it works, because you're being humble. You're being in service to someone else.
Oh yeah, I totally get it because like I said, like what's happened to me now is that my podcast is listened to now in probably almost 50 countries now. Some countries don't even speak English, honestly. And I get messages from Pakistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, like, dude, all over. And they come at points where like just you said, you can't have always expansion. Where that day I was feeling like, man, I mean, something, I'm just feel like I'm not really helping people or people resonating with the message. Like, you would hit a bit of a stagnation in growth in business and the podcast. And I would get an email or a DM from someone, and they'd be like, Todd, like, just listening to your podcast, I've gotten a promotion at work. Other people tell me, Todd, I start drinking and I start back boxing, you know what I mean? I'm taking my fitness seriously. Other people will say, like, I decided I'm going to go back to school and retrain for a career. I've had other people told me, like, Todd, like, I completely, like, stop doing, like, gambling. Oh, like, dude, there's so many stories, right? Like, and sometimes I get here and I'm like, wow, like, they have no idea what they did for me, right? Because, like, acts of service, like, to help people is really what I love to do. And is I agree with you. If you're feeling down, just go and help someone. You feel so much better, right?
Dude,
And
I just wrote this book, and I was like looking at all the numbers, and I was just trying to I was applying my business knowledge to how to launch a book, right? And the minute I had a day that was kind of slow in terms of sales, I did the same thing. Like, you go into this default mode of like, oh, what's wrong with this? Why am I even doing this? And then you get a DM from somebody, and they're like, dude, thank you. And like instantly, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Like that just changed everything, right? Just what you're talking about. So I know that feeling, man. And it's like you're the reason why you're doing the podcast, honestly. Yes, you're doing it to go help people, but really, my guess is that 60% of it is for you. 40% is for everyone else, because every day that you do this, you're learning stuff and you're connecting with human beings, and it really needs to be for you. Once
it's
you do
true.
that, then everyone else will be helped.
It's true, because honestly, I was very excited before I got on the call with you, because I was preparing for it this morning. I was like, I can't wait to talk to this guy. Like, his story is, like, very interesting, right? I love connecting with people and learning stuff. So for me, I be honest, is almost like therapy as well, because when you what happens is that as you grow in your consciousness, which just means knowledge of yourself, your world gets smaller and smaller, and your circle of friends get even smaller. And in terms of dating, becomes exponentially smaller. So, so for me, the podcast is a little bit like therapy, because I can get to talk to people where I can be on a certain wavelength and have that social aspect of being a human. Because I spend most of my days at this same desk on my computer here, working away, planning for podcasts, arranging podcasts, client calls, diets, fitness plans. I pretty much work 7 days a week, right? And I do it because I absolutely love it. Like, I told my mother, if money never existed and I had everything in terms of, like, that I needed, I would do this for free, honestly, right? Because I love it so much. Or because I realize, as long as my needs are taken care of, food, electricity, gas in the car, could go to the beach, enjoy life, I don't need anything. Hell yeah, I would do this for free. But because of my addiction to food and shelter, I have,
And nice shoes,
you know what I mean? Nice shoes, one needs to work, right? So, but yeah, I totally do this. I would say 60% for me, 40% for everyone else. And the messages that I get from people that tell me that I'm impacting their life keeps the fire burning in me, to keep going and to keep finding great people like you, to talk to.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's your ikigai. That's where your passion, what you're good at, how you can make money, and what the world needs all intersects. And that's I did that process, and it really, if you've never done the ikigai process, it's really remarkable to understand really what are your gifts and what does the world need, and how all those different things interacting. And when you follow that path, dude, it's like the universe just rains on top of you. I think that most men, especially in business, I just hear it from a lot of guys that I don't really work with them, but it's like I kind of work with a bunch of guys in helping them kind of like see their path a little clearer. And it's those identities that keep them from doing the thing that they want to do. I had this amazing ketamine experience. I don't know if you've ever done ketamine, but it's,
No.
ketamine is it's an anesthesia that they give you when you're at the ER, but now it's legal in Santa Monica, California. And it's literally an IV, and it's a psychedelic, and it is a very intense psychedelic, but it's only about maybe an hour long. So it's short, but it's super intense. And you do it 6 times over a 2-week period. And, during that time, it was like ego death after ego death after ego death, meaning I would see all these different like buildings being formed. And I was like, oh, that's my thoughts. Oh, that's my identity. Like I would see these thoughts like, what a dad would think. And I'd see these thoughts, what a business person would think. And like, I was like, oh, that's my identity as a father. Oh, that's my identity as a businessman. That's my identity as all these different things that I'd built up. And as the minute I acknowledged and saw those, they would just crumble to the ground. And I was like, oh, that's what they are. They're separate from me. And the next session was I would see one of those identities, just clear as day. It was like a building in front of me. And all of a sudden I'd notice, oh, and then boom, I would start falling, and I would fall deeper and deeper and deeper, basically breaking through all these identities. See another one, boom, fall deeper, deeper. Until eventually, like literally after falling through like 30 different identities, I landed on the ground. I'm looking up I'm like, where am I? It was like a cave. And I'm like, I'm like a puddle of goo. And I was so content with it. I was like, oh yeah, finally. Like I broke through all those stupid identities I have. And now I'm this puddle of goo, and I realized that in order for me to find my greatest purpose in life, I have to break through those identities, because those identities are going to tell you that you can't do this. Like I love being in ceremony. I love helping people transform. I love seeing medicine being served, right? Plant medicine being served. Well, there are so many identities within me that's like, dude, you can't. What would your kids think? Or what would the society think? All these different things that keeps me from doing the things that I have the greatest passion for. And so when you're on a psychedelic and it says HIH, dude, go all in on that. You get that message when you're on psychedelics, because all those identities are just blown away. They don't exist. And I think that is what Ikigai helps you to do. But I think that really is really the challenge for most men and women to identify those identities and just see their limitations. And it's just making you not do the things and be the type person that you really are here to be.
Yeah, and the thing about those identities is that they're mostly based around fear. And you admitted your performance was driven by fear of not being enough. How did that fear play out in work and relationships?
I mean, like everyone was like, dude, everyone would be like, if people describe me, they'd be like super driven, just hardworking, super driven, all these different things. The reality was I was not running towards anything. I was running from the fear of not being successful, period. Like I had so much fear. If I wasn't as successful as my grandfather, if I wasn't able to have success in business, dude, who would I be? That was my identity. And for me, that identity meant success equaled love and desirability and worthiness. And so if I didn't have that, then what would I be? Dude, I would be dead. I would be so pathetic. And so, if Tagger didn't work, right? If my last company didn't work, what did that mean? Dude, it didn't mean that I wouldn't, have the money that my family needs. It meant that I would be the most unworthy piece of shit in the world. Literally, that's what I thought. And so what is that? That is fear. And fear, you're right. Fear drives most people's decisions. It's coming from a place of lack, just what it is. And, you either come from a place of love or fear. And, I sound like Donnie Darko. I talk about this and someone was like, Donnie Darko. I had never even seen that movie and I watched it recently. I'm like, oh, that's so funny. Like there was like 40 comments on TikTok about that, about a post I did. So, but it's true, man. It's like love or fear. And so every day I look at my decisions that I'm making, actions that I take, and I ask myself, is that based out of love or fear? Period. Our house burned down in the Palisades fire, right? So we had to go find another place. That was out of fear, dude. It was like 5,000 people's homes burned. I had to go find a house for my family. Yeah. Now, it's necessary, it's productive, right? But what did I do? Dude, found the first place we can get, we got into it, and that was it. Like, yes, so smart, we should have done that. But that was all out of fear. Now, the people who waited around and they kind of let the market settle a little bit, they probably did better than me because, got charged a high price when we first moved in because everyone was hiking prices. And we're locked into this place for 2 years, right? But, now it's for me, it's really like slow down. And I knew I was making it out of fear, totally fine. Doesn't mean you shouldn't make decisions out of fear. If you're swimming in the ocean, there's sharks next to you, be fearful, bad idea. But when it comes to big life decisions, how you treat people in your family, like, is it from lack or abundance? Now I just choose abundance if I can.
It's true, and I find that, like, especially as us men, we get a lot of programming from society or parents, and I don't even blame them. It's just they didn't know any better because they were taught by their parents, and their parents taught them, and go all the way back to the beginning of time. And we find that us men, we are not really allowed to like do like that inner work and to really get associated or to get comfortable with certain emotions. So why do you think so many men avoid inner work until life breaks them open?
Well, I mean, you talk about emotions, right? And it's like, I've heard people say in the past, like, why don't men access those emotions? Why aren't they more emotional? Dude, if we could, we would. It's not like we're like choosing, like, I'm not going to be emotional about this, or I'm not going to feel that. It's like asking someone without a leg to go walk. Like, we don't even know we have the legs to do that, literally. And, and so, for me, I've spent over the last 5 or 6 years, I do a lot of somatic therapy. Somatic means in the body. And so literally it's 45-minute therapy session. My eyes are closed and I'm in my body feeling through all these things. I had to do that because I couldn't cry. Dude, like my wife, like I said, hadn't seen me cry for 20 years of us being married. And whenever something would happen where I should feel emotion, I would for a moment. I'd feel emotion and I'd be like, okay, this is so sad. And then the minute she would come in front of me, dude, it was like this energy came through me and it just shut everything off. I went completely numb and I had no control over it. It was just what would happen. And I think that happens to a lot of guys. It's like this energetic thing. Now, why is that happen? Well, it's because when I grew up, what I learned or what I believed was vulnerability was disgusting. Dude, if you cried,
Facts.
I mean, what a pussy. Like, disgusting. I mean, why would anyone do that, right? And if a woman saw that, they would probably want to throw up. That's what I believe. And there's a moment where my wife saw a guy cry and she said, "Oh, that's so beautiful." And I looked at her, I'm like, "That's not disgusting. You don't think that's disgusting? Like, what is that?" And she's like, "No, it's beautiful that he can do that." And then that set me on a deeper, self-deprecating, like self-hatred. Oh my gosh, she finds that attractive and I can't even do that. So then I felt even more unlovable because I can't do these things that, so I started comparing myself to other people, right? Which is part of the process of kind of, self-love. The other thing is that most guys won't even admit this stuff. They won't even talk about it. I frankly don't give a shit. I just don't care because I think it helps people. Everything that I go through, everything I feel, every guy feels this stuff, and so for me, I got cracked wide open and that's how I could start accessing this. How do you start accessing this without having that breakthrough? Dude, you work with some amazing people. There's a type of therapy coaching called internal family systems. Go find someone like this. Literally, you will, internal family systems means that you have all these different parts of you. So I have a part of me who's like the man who just runs my life, right? Did. And what is that man protecting? This little vulnerable boy who I just exiled. That, like, vulnerability was disgusting. It was weak. So I just pushed that part away from me and the man would come in. And that's the energy I would feel whenever I felt sad or something. And I worked with this amazing coach, Michelle Bronson, here in LA, who in the first session, dude, she called in the man and you embody this part. I'm like, yeah, I'm the man. And, I'm saying person, listen, if I didn't exist, Pete would be dead. Pete is a total loser without me, And after the man got to speak, she called in the little boy. And literally, dude, my shoulders hunched, my hands went between my legs. Like I became this little boy. And the minute I started talking, I started crying. There was so much pain and sadness with that.
Wow.
But it was through therapy that I was able to access that stuff. Now, it was so funny. The minute she was like, all right, thanks, little boy, let me call back in the man. She goes, and I just had this like long experience with this little boy, and I was like crying, and it was I felt so bad for this kid. The minute the man came back into my energy, she goes, what do you think about that little boy? And I go, I fucking hate that little pussy. Like literally, that part of me absolutely disdain that part of me, that vulnerable side of me. And then I was like, oh shit. And I heard, dude, I said it. It was not even me who was saying that. It was this part of me. And I was like, oh my God. And then I went on this, crazy journey of just trying to destroy myself to get rid of him. I was just trying to erase him completely. So I just went on all these crazy retreats, just trying to break myself, which was a crazy journey as well, but not necessary. But yeah, that was, once I became aware of him, then I was like, oh yeah, I need to destroy that part of me, which is not integration. That's not what you should do, by the way.
True. The thing is, right, okay, while men, we are not really taught or shown that we need to get in tune with that little boy and stuff. The problem is that today's society, most women, and I can repeat that, not all women, most women heavily punish men when they're a bit vulnerable with them. Now, if you have the right woman with you, she won't punish you. But the problem that we do have in our society today, and I know this because I'm in the dating market, right? So when I'm talking about these things, I know from experience, because I had experiences where, you're talking to a girl and you be a little bit vulnerable and she disappeared literally the next day, dude. So no one is going to come and tell me that these things I'm seeing are not how they are, because I've got enough experience in dating with women that these things are how they are, which is why I repeat, not all women are like this, but most women are like this. And there are some good ones out there that would appreciate that, because they feel, oh, I am special, that you can show that side of me, right?
Yes.
But the sad reality is that as a man, we have to be very careful in showing that side, because it can be very manipulated by a lot of these women. And is this balance that you have to get where you can't really show it, because women respond to certain things. Because as a guy that, like I say, I've been kind of good with girls for my entire life. I've never had issues. All of my mates pretty good with girls as well. And all the people out there that are dating coaches tell you the same thing. And I learned this from experience. You ignore what women say and you look at how they respond and how they react. So their actions and behaviors are the truth, and their words, you just disregard them. You don't even listen to them, right? This is going to sound bad, but this is the truth, right? Now, obviously, there are exceptions to the rule. This is why I talk in generalities and make exceptions for the ones that are like that. But men, we have to be very careful in how we show that side to women, because you go and show that side to most women, you're gonna get punished, and you're not gonna find a mate, right? So it's a balance that you have to have.
Yeah, there's a lot there, right? Okay, so first of all, like, you're talking about the people that you've interacted with, right? So the question is, why are those people the ones you're interacting with? Well, typically what we do is we go to what's familiar to us. Okay, so let me give you an example of my wife and I. So for me, growing up, I don't know why I have this, right? But I have this, and most men have this as well, this abandonment issue, right? It could be for any reason. if someone doesn't show me love, okay, then that's just not them like busy or something. They don't have time for me. To me, that's abandonment. And a lot of guys have that in a relationship. So, for example, my wife is late for dinner, right? Or we're supposed to go on date night and she's late. To me, I'm like, dude, I'm not important enough that she can be on time for date night. And so she's like an hour late. That means that she doesn't care about me. It's abandonment. So I get frustrated, I get mad. Well, what does that tell her? She fucked up again. Where does she come from? She comes from a place of shame. Oh, everything that she did in her life was shameful. Maybe her parents, criticized her all the time, whatever it is. And so this is not like some like, oh, he feels the abandonment. It is, he hates me and he finally knows that I'm a failure. So when you're coming, and so why do we do this, by the way? Why do we find mates like this? Well, one, they're our greatest mirror, right? She just shows me what is true within inside of me, and I show her what's true inside of her. She comes from shame, I come from abandonment. So we're just these giant mirrors to each other. Thank you very much, which sucks, but that's just what it is. But why do we find people like that? Well, because it's familiar. I know what abandonment feels like. So I'm going to go find someone who's super independent. Just how it works, how human natures are going to be drawn to people who are going to ping the trauma vortex that they've been holding their entire lives. And so are all women like that? I don't know. Are the women that you're going after? Yes. Why? Is there a familiarity there? Is there a reason why you're going after these women? I don't know, man. Or is there a reason why those women are attracted to you? I don't know. Maybe there is, So I think that there's something much deeper than, listen, men hold a lot. It's very difficult to be a man. Women, same here. End of the day, we're all coming into every conversation with this historical shame, abandonment, whatever it is. That is the lens that we're putting those things through. So when you walk into that conversation, into that bar, and you have that conversation with that woman, and you get vulnerable, and you get signals from her that she's not interested, you have absolutely no idea what she's thinking. You have no idea where she's coming from. You two aren't even having a conversation with each other. These different parts are. The minute she's not very interested, instantly that pulls into this fucking woman, blah, blah, blah. This narrative that plays in your head. She senses that. She gets triggered. That's a different experience. And so when my wife and I get into these things with each other, we're not even having a conversation anymore. It's just these parts of us that are being triggered. So I'm not saying that's always the case, but I think that there is something way deeper, when you're in a relationship for 5 years, there's always a deeper, message there, because man, my reality is not your reality. And no one's reality is yours, because it's all mapped by the lens that you're putting things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely it does, because I've actually had that epiphany recently where I look back at not all the women, because I can't remember all of them, to be honest, but certain recent ones. And I said to myself, you know what? These were the absolute opposites of me, where like I had certain strengths, and those strengths they desired in me, and they had certain things about them that I desired in them. So it was like two lacks looking to try to find wholeness. And then I realized, but those areas now are the parts that I have to work on myself. So now that I show up differently for me, because I want to break the patterns. Because, this is why I said not all women are like that, right? Because I talk in generalities, but I make exceptions to the rule, because there are exceptions. Yeah. And I think that the exceptions are the ones that are like the diamonds out there that you polish every day to keep them shiny, So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Totally. But listen, the diamonds go dull. They just
true.
Like
true.
Okay. So you meet somebody and you become infatuated, and it's this honeymoon phase, and it's like, oh my God, dude, all that is just the invitation. It's like this divine invitation for you two to find each other. It's more like chemistry, right? Like literally chemistry, what's happening in your body. It's human nature. We have to go find that person. Okay. And then what happens? Well, after you've been married for a while, the infatuation fades away. It just does. There are things to do to keep it alive, and it's really fun. But like really what you then sink into is the work, the dharma that your soul's brought you together for. What is the dharma? The dharma is the spiritual purpose. Why you two are together? Well, dude, my wife and I's souls made an agreement before this lifetime that we'd find each other and we'd grow together in this lifetime because we have lessons to teach each other, lessons in love and lessons in patience and, lessons in walking each other home back to ourselves. And so when you look at it that way, what is her job? Her job is to ping the shit out of my trauma vortex. And I do the same to her. It's like I'm just holding up that mirror. So, do you want to find, Todd out there? No, you don't want to find Todd. Dude, you want to find the opposite of Todd. You're going to get so bored with Todd because you both have the same issues and you're not going to be holding up the mirror to each other. I think you want to find the opposite of Todd. And when you do, man, it's like, it's challenging, like relationships aren't meant to be easy. They're there to challenge you, but they're there to grow you. And that's every time my wife and I piss each other off, dude. It's like, okay, you got 24 hours. That's kind of our rule. You get 24 hours. Point the finger at me, be like, yes, you're a dick. You do all these different things, But, within 24 hours, we look at ourselves and we're like, okay, what does that actually, that person did that. What does that tell me about me? Oh, it tells me that I have this issue or that issue. Okay, that's the work I need to do. And thank you for showing me that. But to me, that's really what a relationship is. The first part's just like a fun little like appetizer. It's like, all right, come on in. And then you get down to the work. And I think that most couples, they don't look at it that way. They don't look at it as this dharma. They look at it as like, you make me happy or I'm getting the fuck out. And you're going to leave, dude, because they are not going to make you happy. I guarantee you, that's not why they're there.
I agree. And I agree with everything you said just now in terms of that. It's like the mirror and, they're there to, I think that people grow the most when they're in relationships. So I concur completely with you. And, I'm glad that you were able to share that wisdom with my audience because you see 25 years you've been married?
Yeah. 24.
That's call it a quarter of a century, man. That's good
old.
time.
Yeah,
that's good time. So that is a lot of very good wisdom because I do have couples and that listen to my podcast. So that's some really good wisdom for them and for me as well. So, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So,
and last thing I'll say about that too, it's like I know a lot of people who are on some path, right? Could be a spiritual path or it could be whatever. And, they're like, it's so difficult because my partner is not on the same path as me. And I'm like, oh, what path? I mean, what do you want from them? If they start to get into the spiritual path or whatever it is, you'll be happy. They don't have the power to make you happy. They don't have the power to make you unhappy. And if you are wanting that from them, whatever that thing is, that's not love. That's attachment. Attachment is if you do this, I will be happy. It's all conditional, right? And so, that's another thing I look at every day in my actions. And I'm human. I do it all the time, right? We're all human. But I'm like, okay, is that attachment or love? Am I like looking for this person to make me happy? If I am, then I know I'm on down the wrong path because she ain't gonna make me happy, So
True. So you've experienced both psychedelic ceremonies and attended darkness retreat.
Yes.
How do those experiences differ in breaking down identity?
Psychedelic experiences are the identity breaker, right? And they're very challenging. I hate psychedelics. I've done all of them, and not recklessly. I just I'm a seeker of like going deep in myself, man. It's like the minute I become aware of something about myself, dude, instantly I'm like, shut that off, go to the next thing. I want to keep peeling back the layers, and psychedelics are amazing at that. So every psychedelic is different. Iboga is different than ayahuasca, than psilocybin, than ketamine. And they all give you different things, but ultimately what they give you is typically self-love or some version of that, looking at your highest self. So I do like psychedelics in that way. Now, if you're a control freak, like I always have been, dude, psychedelics are painful because, control is an illusion within the psychedelic realm. And what I found is that when I go into those situations, deep in an identity, right? And I want to control the situation, typically what I did was I would go deep into the hell realm, like painfully into the hell realm. And it wasn't until I was able to fully surrender in that experience that I came out. But man, I've had some brutal experiences with psychedelics. So that's kind of the psychedelic realm. We can go into that forever. Like I love talking about that. The cave to me was very challenging. I did it after I sold my company. Really, before I started, and it was about halfway. It was maybe at the end of my 5-week program. I went into the cave, and it was a 4-day total darkness. You don't know what time of day it is. They give you food once a day for 24 hours. They put it through a box so no light comes in. They change the time throughout the day that they're giving it to you, so they could give it to you at noon or 10 o'clock at night. You just don't know. So you never have a concept of time. And
woo.
Yeah. and what I ended up doing was, dude, I was counting off seconds in my mind like a crazy man in prison, just like etching them in the skull of my brain. And yeah, dude, it was brutal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I love meditating. Dude, I can meditate for 5 hours if I really wanted to. And I couldn't even meditate in there because my mind was just obsessed with time. And and so what happened was I was in there for 2 days or something, and I had this dream that I got out, and I was running down the street, and the semi picked me up, and the minute I closed the door, I woke back up in the cave, and I was like, oh shit. And I didn't know if I slept for 5 minutes or 8 hours, and I was like, why am I here torturing myself? Because it didn't feel like growth. It felt like torture, self-harm. And I was like, oh, I've done this before. Like I've done brutal retreats, and I would always say, hey, I'm going to go do this retreat. My wife would be like, why? And I go, because I'm afraid to do it. The minute something scared me, dude, it was a street sign flashing, you have to go do this. Because for me, it was like, I had to prove to myself and to the world, going back to that kind of kid, and I had to prove that I was stronger and more courageous than anyone. That's just what I did. And so if someone said only 5 people in the world have done this, I was the first one to sign up. I was always there, terrified every single time. But I had to prove to myself that I could do it. And lying in that bed after that dream, realizing, oh, I was punishing myself. I started to hear the voices in my head. The little kid, it was like, dude, can we please get out of here? I'm just like, I don't want this anymore. And then I heard the man was like, dude, don't be a pussy. You got to stay. Prove that you're strong enough and all these things. And at that moment, I was like, oh, I'm listening to these parts of me that were formed when I was 8. These little parts that are still driving my life, still trying to prove something, still terrified of things. And at that moment, I was like, all right, oh, that's integrate. I know you guys, that's integration. I don't need that anymore. Thank you. I'm a 48-year-old man. I'm good. Thank you very much. And I'm going to make my own decision. And I got up that day when Scott, the guy who runs the place, came to my door to deliver the food. I was like, Scott, I'm out of here, dude. I was like, I'll stay one more night. I don't even know what time it is, but get me tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. and I'll. So I didn't stay the whole 4 days. I stayed like 3 days, which was the best thing in the world. I had never not finished something in my entire life, not once. And that was the first thing I ever did. And it wasn't failure, dude. It was just like, it was agency. Finally was choosing for myself. It felt amazing. So again, horrible experience for me. One of the greatest lessons of my life. And that's what all these psychedelics are. Learn your lessons.
That dark room, that sounds like levels to me. Like I've done quite a bit of psychedelics, and I've had like the last ayahuasca trip I had, it was pretty tough. I had a massive purge at the end. And just to touch on what you said in terms of like the thing about control, I find that for me, when I did not want to release control was when I had the most purging. Like, especially with ayahuasca, like you would ask yourself, where did all of this come from? Because you don't eat quite a few hours, and you just purge and purge and purge. And so anyone that is going to do ayahuasca, don't fight it. just let it take over your body. Just let go. It's easier said than done. Trust me, I've been there.
Easier said than done. Yeah.
But when you fight it, it beats you up. That's why it's called a mother.
Yes, when I did ayahuasca, we went down. You did it 4 times in 1 week, and I don't know, man. It was. Everyone had very challenging experiences. I always heard people were like, "Oh, the most beautiful experience of my life," and I had done iboga like 4 times.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I know, right? So I had done iboga like 4 times. Iboga is 24 hours. I mean, ayahuasca is 5 hours. Iboga is 24. You're paralyzed, during 12 hours of it. I mean, it is like the most intense, stern father telling you where you messed up in your life. I mean, so I go into ayahuasca cocky as shit. I was like, oh, I got this. This is like nothing. Everyone does ayahuasca. Dude, destroyed me. And, it can show you beautiful things, but it will also show you your biggest fear in life. And when your biggest fear is control, it will show you what out of control feels like. And I literally became this particle floating in space, and there was like lasers shooting past me. And all I could do is grip onto this concept that the name Pete Kennedy even existed. And that is how far gone I was. And I was just trying to like claw my way, trying to control the situation, trying to hold on to this one identity that I thought still existed. And the more you do, this, like the more you grip onto that, dude, the worse it's going to get. And yeah, it was terrifying and horrifying. Yeah, it was not a great experience, but yeah. But what did I learn there? I learned that I'm a control freak, that's the life lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you, I'll be honest, being in the dark room like that for a few days, it sounds like if it's even more challenging mentally than any psychedelic experience, because it is like no light, just there. You're there with your thoughts. Like you sleep for a certain amount of time and then you wake up, but then it's almost like you're still asleep because you can't see anything. So sleep and then being awake are almost like the same states. So
exactly. Like with meditation, when you close your eyes, closing your eyes is the transition, right? When you do meditation,
Yeah.
unless you do like Zazen meditation where your eyes are half open, but there's a state change, whatever that is. When you're in the dark, there is no state change. Eyes open, eyes closed. It's the exact same thing. And so that made it difficult to do. And all I could obsess on was the time, dude. Like, how long was this? How long did this last? And there was nothing to do in this room. You're just in this room by yourself, and there's no noise. There's nothing to distract you. So it's just you with your thoughts. And, the Scott, the guy who runs the place, he does come and you can talk to him through the wall briefly when he comes there to deliver your food once a day. And he was like, how you doing? And the first day I'm like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, and he's like, explain it to me. I was like, dude, I want to be home. I was just like breaking down. And he was like, sounds like you don't feel at home unless you're at home, like meaning with your family, with your what's familiar. And I was like, yeah. And just that thought alone, I was like, oh yeah, that's true. Like, I'm not at home. I'm not comfortable unless I know where I am, right? Where I'm comfortable. And so that brought me on a deeper journey within that cave of trying to figure out why that is. Like, why do I seek comfort so much? What does that give me? Why can't I be sitting in pitch darkness for 4 days and not and be totally at home and comfortable there? Yeah. And, because I think that we're creatures of comfort. We seek familiar. We seek comfort. And what I've always done with all these retreats is run towards discomfort. and it is uncomfortable and it's painful a lot of times. Yeah, it was for me. So yeah.
That's true. I tend to run to things that are difficult and uncomfortable. So I kind of that resonates with me a lot.
Yeah. Well, why do you think that is?
I think for me, I don't know. Subconsciously, I like to push myself, even though when I'm in it, I don't like it. So it's this sort of like this love-hate relationship with difficulty that I love to learn stuff and I love to evolve. But while I'm in it, doing it, I absolutely hate it. But after I overcome it, it's like, Okay, well done. So it swings like this pendulum back and forth, where it's like hating it, hating it, loving it. But I still do it because I know that if I stay in my comfort zone, there's no growth.
Exactly.
So that's the underlying thing in me, and I've always been like that when I look at my entire life, and I'm like, me, it just this thing inside of me that pushes me to do that, you know.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's it, dude. Listen, no one grows by sitting on their couch, and
Facts.
yeah. And when guys come to me and they feel stuck in life and they, it's like, okay, well, look at your behavior. Like, what are you doing? Doing the same thing every single day, right? And either something is going to disrupt your life, meaning your house is going to burn down in a fire, or your wife's going to become an alcoholic and that's going to blow up your entire life. It's either going to be something that blows up your life without you doing it, which is going to affect change, or you get off the couch and you start taking this life by the balls, get uncomfortable, run towards discomfort constantly. Like the minute you're like, oh, life is pretty good, dude, turn the other way and run into growth. Find yourself in a foreign country with no idea on how to get home. Like, you don't even know how to talk to people. Like, get in that level of discomfort, and dude, the world will open up to you, and you will discover your greatest your greatest life lessons. So,
Yeah, that definitely resonates with me. You know, me, I shift countries, so I get it completely. So, what daily practices have helped you integrate plant medicine lessons so they become transformation instead of just stories?
Yeah, definitely. I do breath work and meditation every single day, just a non-negotiable for me. I also do cold plunges. I had a sauna before the fire, but so I haven't done that, since January. But yeah, I have to do cold plunge, meditation, and breath work every single day. Not in that order. It's actually breath work, meditation, and cold plunge. And I have to do that because it quiets my mind. It just, like, when I wake up and I'm in kind of chaos, your mind's thinking about the 400,000 things that you have to do today. The minute you start to doing breath work, and really what you're doing for me and everyone else is when you do a belly breath, right? So belly out, then you bring it up into your chest. You're hitting your parasympathetic nervous system, and you're telling your body, dude, just calm down, right? And so every time you push out your belly, you pushing against those nerves, and the more breath you do, you're changing the makeup of oxygen and CO2 in your body, and it just calms me down to the point where then I can meditate. I try to meditate like right now and just try to go into it. It'll take me a while to get into that. Breath work, though, lowers your thinking mind, and then I can go and meditate. And you talked about, you did a plant medicine journey, and boom, you had this HIH download. Oh yes, I get those downloads during meditation and breath work. It just happens. Like when I'm doing breath work, right? So I'll do breath work for about, call it 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll do a breath hold, and I'll hold my breath for 2.5 minutes, and then I'll do another round, and I'll just keep doing rounds for anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. During those breath holds, first of all, I'm high as shit because you're taking all the energy up to your top of your crown, and it's those moments where the greatest downloads of my life come in, almost more than psychedelics in a way, because it's real. There's nothing from the outside that's making me feel this way. It's almost like a spiritual experience for me each time. And so that's what it does for me. It quiets my mind. It gives me the downloads from my highest self. And it really prepares me for the day. Now, when I do meditation, I do kind of like Joe Dispenza-esque meditation, in the sense that when I'm meditating, I'm not just like thinking of absolutely nothing. Dude, I am flooding my body with emotions. Okay. So I'll think about my kids and how much I love them, or my wife and how much I love them. What am I doing? I'm flooding my body with oxytocin. What does oxytocin do? Gets into it activates your genes. It rebuilds heart tissue. Serotonin. I'll just think about how grateful I am for this journey. Literally just fill my body full of serotonin, right? And so all these different things, I'm retraining my body every single day to to fall in love and be addicted to happy hormones, because we live in this society where we are just, we're in this fight or flight mode constantly. Social media makes us look at horrible videos all the time. We watch political stuff. There's this divide in our country. Are you left or are you right? You're all idiots, right? We're all idiots, period. And part of the reason why we're all so like, engulfed in this political environment and all these different things is because it gives us something, it gives us an arousal, makes us feel good. It sounds crazy, but when you're full of cortisol and adrenaline, your body is so used to it. So if you're like, I'm going to put down my phone and I'm going to do a digital detox and I'm not going to look at my phone for a week, dude, good luck. Within one day, if you can even make it one day, your mind might be like, yes, this is probably good for me. Your body is saying, where are those chemicals that I've been so used to? Where's the fast dopamine? Where's the adrenaline cortisol that I see when I see horrible car accidents on Instagram, right? Your body's become addicted to it. And so when I'm in meditation, I am retraining my body to fall in love with oxytocin, serotonin, all these just happy hormones. Otherwise, yeah, I'll just seek that kind of adrenaline, cortisol experience in life. And that's what we all are. And that's why there's so much disease and inflammation in our society, because our bodies are just full of it.
Absolutely. So guys, we can take a very, very short break here just to say, if you're getting value from this conversation, hit that like button, leave us a 5-star rating if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, subscribe and drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway so far. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Adriano_246 or at the Conscious Man 7 podcast as well. And connect with me on Facebook via my name, Todd Cave. If you want more direct access to me, to ask me questions, get early podcast releases, and other perks like that, to join me on Patreon or Locals, which also directly supports the work that we do behind the scenes, like finding great guests like Peter. Links below are in the description. Now let's get back into it with Peter. So you had talked about when you did, I think it was the somatic, or no, you were the therapist, and you had the man and then the boy. So when you first, I guess that's when you first met your inner child. How did that change the way you led in business and life?
Yeah, I mean, it completely shifted my awareness. It completely shifted my life. Like the minute I had that experience, and I was first of all able to cry. Hadn't really cried, since I was a little kid. And I became aware of the man, right? This thing that was driving me. I had done that right after I got back from Brazil. So when I came back from Brazil, I had the Temescal, I had the Iboga for the first time. And I became so aware of this control I've been holding in life with. And then I went and saw Michelle and I had this session with her. And then I was able to name that thing. It was the man, that energy that comes in. And the minute I became aware of that side of me, dude, I traveled the world trying to destroy that part of me. I went on more Iboga journeys. I went on more ayahuasca journeys. I was trying to eliminate that part of me that was controlling me in that way. And what I failed to see was that I had fallen into another trap of the spiritual path, right? Because, I was, my identity was, this business person, whatever. Then I became aware of this and I became the seeker, this person who, wasn't, didn't have any identities anymore. I was trying to move beyond identity, but I was just being trapped into another identity. And that was the seeker, this trying to be the monk on the mountain. That's what I really wanted to be. And which is just another trap, right? So I was just seeking something different. So that awareness really shattered me, honestly. And it made me kind of, I wouldn't say self-harm because I learned a lot from all those different retreats I went on, but dude, it was brutal. And why was I doing? And people would see me. They're like, why are you're doing another one? I'm like, yeah. And I wouldn't tell anyone how I was doing it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going deeper. Dude, I was trying to destroy myself, honestly, And I talk about this in the book too, but it's, yeah. But then once I came to that conclusion, okay, what am I doing here? And I worked with Michelle so much more. She's a genius. I realized that part of me is never going to go away, dude. It is me. Call it a part of me. It's me. That is me. I'm, and once you can come to peace with that, then you kind of move beyond that. So I had worked with another woman, Conchetta Trotsky, who I still work with now. Still work with Michelle, but Conchetta serves medicine and she serves psilocybin. And I didn't even go there to talk about the man. I was there for just somatic therapy and stuff like that. And she, in our first sessions, she sensed this energy and she's like, oh, wow. Because these people have something. They can just sense this stuff. She's like, oh, wow, I can sense an energy with you. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, please don't sense that. And she's like, oh, man, he's like the man. And the minute she said that, I was like, oh, fuck. And this voice in my head was like, I am the fucking man. And he like came back in full force. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to get this dude. That's not why I'm here. And, after doing a lot of work with her, she was like, listen, you got to love the man. And I'm like, fucking love the man. I fucking hate him. That guy fucked me over, makes me not feel anything, all these different things. And she was like, we need a psilocybin ceremony. And I did it. And I was terrified, but because she was serving a lot of medicine to me, what it felt like. And literally my intention was just to get to know the man. And I'll tell you real quick. So I take the medicine and it's weird, dude. I hate psychedelics. It's like, weird sounds and I'm a blindfold on. I got this headset on listening to this playlist that I hated. And I rip it off and I'm like, this sucks, Conchetta. Like, I'm like, my mind's all over the place. I can't even think about my intention. So we do this grounding meditation where she gets me back in my body. I'm like, okay. And I lie back down, put on the eye mask, and I call out to the man. I'm like, all right, brother, come on. I'm here for you. I took this medicine because of you. What do you have to say? And he appeared in front of me. Psychedelics, like you can see this shit. He appeared in front of me, shiny ball, like the size of a basketball. And he zipped to the furthest corner of my mind. And he's like, you're fucking out of control. What is wrong with you? Doing psychedelics? It's like, he's like, I can't feel anything. I'm inside this ball. You can go fuck yourself. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's great. I'm like, I can see him far in the distance. And I'm like, oh, what the hell am I going to do now? Like, okay, well, if you want to come down and talk to me, feel free. I'll be here. And then you talk about the purge, dude. I start purging. And not throwing up, I was yawning for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, uncontrollable, kind of like what you do on ayahuasca. And then I started to do contractions, ab contractions, right in my solar plexus. And I'm like, oh my God. And it was just like my body was being lifted off the ground. Conchetta was like, it looked like an exorcism. For an hour, I am just full somatic, like body. It was like torture and pleasure all at the same time. It was wild. And when the last contraction happened, the man came down from the wall and he laid next to me. And the boy appeared too. And it was like the three of us. And we went on this like journey into our past, man. And, and then we were like ragefully screaming. I mean, it was wild. And ultimately, the tears and the raging and all the screaming, we were raging at the world, people who didn't believe in us, people who treat us like shit, all these different things. But halfway through that, we realized, oh, we weren't raging at them. We were raging at ourselves. I had created the man. I had created the boy. It was all me, dude. And that realization was a punch in my face. I was like, oh, fuck, I did. Those people didn't make me feel any way. I felt that way because that's the lens that I put it on, and that was just such a beautiful realization. And that really was the integration with the man and the boy, me and how I did it.
That's very beautiful. And I think that you're giving a lot of men out there now a little bit of hope and belief that they can walk the same path that you walk, because most men, we have the same internal dialogues because of societal pressures, our beliefs about ourselves. We have to deliver, we can't have feelings and stuff. So, I think that a lot of men out there will, and women too, to be fair, because they have the same things, just slightly different spectrums on a different scale. To pick up their cross and to walk the path and die to their old selves, because that's really what the allegory of Christ is dying to yourself, to your old self that caused all the things that are going on in your life, So I think it gives great inspiration to people,
Yeah, like a lot of guys who've read my book and a lot of women, every guy is like, dude, I got the man, and every woman who read it is, it's like, I got the woman too. It's the same thing. It's just different.
Same thing.
Different.
Just
looks different. maybe instead of control, you have this or whatever it is. Anytime that you have one part of you, call it the protector, right? That's the man. That's what the man's job is, to protect you, right? It is a shitty way to do it in a way, but it's there to protect you. It's there to protect you against this vulnerable side. It's like when my wife and I have an argument, for example. I'm like, okay, she's spending too much money. What's my reaction? Anger. I'm like, dude, stop spending our money. Well, what is that really? That anger is really protecting this little kid who's like, dude, I don't know if I can sustain this anymore. Like, I don't want to work the rest of my life. Like, if all of our money is gone, I can't live this life that I've created for our family. It's fear. And so whenever you have like an anger, instantly, for me, I just look, okay, what's the vulnerable side that anger's really protecting? There's always a vulnerable side. Men, we can access the anger. We can access the man all we want. Super easy. We've done it our whole life. The vulnerable side, the side that's like scared and all that stuff, very hard. And now when I approach my wife, for example, with not the anger side, but the vulnerable side, much better. Because when I get angry, what do? I trigger another part of her that feels shame and like the shitbag. And so it's not even us having a conversation. It's my anger, her shame, just like yelling at each other,
The two identities.
Two identities. And so what we do, it's so funny. My wife would be like, it's called voice dialogue. And we learned this with a coach, but now we do it ourselves. And we'll be like, she'll be like, okay, can we time out real quick? I'm like, okay, fuck it. So we go into the bathroom, we sit on the floor, and we'll be like, okay, what are those two talking about? Because we leave those two identities behind, and we start looking, and we're like, and I'm like, okay, and I'm not talking about me anymore. I'm talking about that person in the other room. I'm like, okay, he hates her. He's like so pissed that, so I can embody that part of me that's in there, part that's angry, and I can deliver it to her in that way and explain how he feels. And I'm like, and she's like, well, she feels like he's an asshole, and it doesn't trigger me because it's not me who's in the other room that she's talking about. It's this part of me, and it's called voice dialogue, and it's so cool to do. Now, most couples, or we, for example, we have a hard time remembering, because when you are triggered and you're in those identities, one of us usually isn't smart enough to be like, oh yeah, let's time out. We're just constantly just triggering each other. But yeah, when you do that, man, when you can do that voice dialogue, it's so fun. And then it ends the conversation instantly, because it's like, okay, those two are idiots. They're just both triggered. So yeah,
Very, very cool. I very much like that. So we can transition slightly. Let's talk about a little bit of practicality and business hacks, so we can add some value to people. So why do so many men underachieve or stay stuck in survival even when they're working hard?
Fear. It's all fear. Fear keeps you stuck. Okay, so when you're okay, let's imagine this. Okay, well, you had a moment in your life where you lost everything, Todd. Right? So you lost it all, right? And in that moment, what do you go into? Dude, you go into fight or flight mode. You either fight and just run and beat up everyone, or you run and you hide or you can freeze, where you just like sit there. Well, that's a chemical reaction that's happening in your body. Okay. And when you're in fight or flight mode, you go into survival mode. Dude, what's happening in your body is fascinating. All the energy, all the blood goes to your hindbrain, away from your creative brain. That's called your survival brain. Instead of going to your creative brain, it goes to your hindbrain, survival. Literally, the blood rushes to your extremities so that you can run faster or hide faster if you need it. All unnecessary organs literally just shut down. Okay, so your body's going into survival mode. It's funny, if you're in a massive room and I'm talking and I go and pick you out and I said, Todd, stand up in front of everyone. Tell everyone the best joke you can right now. Most people won't even be able to think of a joke. Their mind literally goes blank. Why is that? True. Well, it's because everything goes to your hindbrain. Your creative brain is completely shut down. Why? Because your body's trying to be efficient. There's no benefit to having creativity in that, because you're going to get eaten by a lion. So that is why, in my opinion, most people, don't meet their fullest potential. because we're constantly in fear mode. We're constantly in fight or flight. Okay? We're worried about this, worried about that. We're worried about not meeting our full potential. The creativity goes away. You're in survival mode. And so that's why I think most people are making decisions out of fear. And so if you can slow down, if you can have a practice like breath work and meditation, I do it all throughout the day. I've done breath work like 5 times during this conversation. I'm just breathing in, pushing out my belly. I'm just lowering my nervous system to tell me everything's good, everything's chill, right? My thoughts become more clear. So, practically, I think that if you haven't done breathwork, do breathwork. There's a million free ones that you can do online. It doesn't cost you anything. You can't hurt yourself. You can do it alone. I mean, literally, I just do it all the time. I'm constantly lowering my nervous system, okay? Because we are living in, you have beta, you have alpha, you have theta. Those are your brain waves. Most of the times we're living in high beta, where we're just like, you wake up and you look at your phone and there's a million text messages that you got to look at. Then you go on social media and life's, you're in high beta. Your mind is just going crazy. The goal is to lower our baseline down to beta, right? Now, your beta and my beta are going to look different because, maybe you consume a ton of social media all the time. You're super stressed out all the time. Whereas, dude, I'm doing breath work throughout the day. I'm lowering my nervous system down, right? And so my baseline is maybe lower than yours, right? And what's going to happen there? I'm going to make better decisions. I'm just going to be able to see things more clearly. So practically speaking, I think that the best thing people can do is just find a practice that works for you. It could be qigong, it could be breath work, whatever it is. Do it every single day, yeah. Does that make sense about why the brain goes into
Yeah, makes sense. So then this delves into the question I'm going to ask you next. So what are some of the daily habits or mindset shifts that helped you move from survival to authorship of your life?
Yes. Okay. So the main thing was when I understood the chemistry. Dude, when we are in that fight or flight, we are pumping cortisol and adrenaline throughout our body. If you ever look at animals in the wild, like a deer, for example, they'll get spooked and they will instantly just be filled with adrenaline cortisol. They'll run and they can run really fast. And then they'll stop. And when there is no danger, you'll watch them and they'll literally shake off everything. They are shaking off the adrenaline cortisol. Literally, they're shaking it out of their body. Baseline comes down. We as human beings don't do that, dude. We are constantly increasing our baseline, never allowing the cortisol and adrenaline to really just, settle down into our system. Social media, man, it's constant. This jobs that we have where you just go there and it's just like the stress and the pressure and everything. So our lives are just full of adrenaline. And so when I realize what that is doing to my body, it's doing the same thing as oxytocin, serotonin, and all these happy drugs or all these happy chemicals. It's turning on genes, but it's activating bad genes, creating inflammation in our body. It's just creating disease. So I'm not saying don't be angry and don't get upset and don't have adrenaline. You need that. You're a human being. You should feel that. But dude, there are people who live in that anger. Like some guy screwed him over 20 years ago. They're still talking about that. Every time they think about that guy, all they're doing is reactivating that same, fight or flight that they had back in the day. But what's so fascinating is if you actually looked at what the event was that makes you pissed off compared to how you actually feel, dude, your body, one, still thinks that thing is still real, that it's actually happening again today. But your mind has filled in so many holes that the story that you're telling yourself today is not the story that actually happened. Like, I guarantee you, if you go back to that person on stage with me at IU, and I mean, I could tell you the exact things I said, what she said, I could tell you how the crowd reacted. I guarantee you my story isn't even close to what actually happened. You would probably watch the interaction and be like, dude, what are you talking about? There was nothing. She said nothing. You said nothing. No one even noticed. But to me, dude, that event was huge. And I keep telling myself that, and it's changing. And now I'm adding facts. Our mind is able to, wherever there's a hole, we're going to fill up that hole because we want to be really efficient with our energy. That's what the mind does.
It's true.
And so, yeah, so what are we doing? Dude, we're killing ourselves with these stories, living in the past and all those different things. Now it's like, get angry. Yes. Get pissed. Divine. Know that some boundary has been crossed. But dude, at some point, stop going there. Realize that you're just killing yourself. And then there's this whole thing about alchemizing that into love and other things, which I think is a fascinating topic. But yeah, so but when I learned about what's actually happening in my body and how I'm doing it, I'm making myself suffer, I'm killing myself. Why would I do that? It's insane. It's insanity. So yeah, that was for me what changed it all.
It's true. You became, as they would say, become present. You became present to what was happening. So with Evolve Well, you emphasize between session practices. What are the most powerful strategies you've seen clients use between coaching sessions?
Yeah. So, we're an AI platform for coaches and therapists. So what we do is we create a platform for AI that they can utilize. It's going to customize content for the individual client for them. Our job is not to take over between sessions. Our job is not to become the platform or, become the therapist. It's far from it. We want to become an extension of the coach or therapist. So, I did this practice, about a year and a half ago, and it really, maybe a year ago, it changed my life. Okay. So I do a lot of journaling in AI and in our platform. So I talk about my life and all these different life lessons. And then I asked it a simple question. I asked this question every single month. Fascinating. Tell me 5 things you know about me that I don't know about myself. And be brutally honest. Dude, it is
Wow.
Your greatest areas of growth are in there because it is seeing the things that you don't see about yourself. Okay. And one of the things is like, you have a profound sense of responsibility. Okay. Got it. Big deal. Take that. I said, take that. And I put it into a podcast creator. And I said, make a podcast about me. These 3 AI people talking about me. And dude, mind was blown. And the purpose of that podcast was to say, listen, create more awareness of this in my life and help me integrate this. Help me work through this profound sense of responsibility. What does that mean? How does it show up in my life? How does it affect people that I love? And, one of the people on the podcast, which is AI, was like, what's so fascinating? I bet since he has a profound sense of responsibility, I bet he's a control freak, which means that if you want to make sure outcomes are successful for everyone around you, the people that you love, all these different things, profound sense of responsibility, you got to control those things. He must be a control freak. And I'm like, holy shit. Like that is, and my wife's like, yeah, no kidding, dude. I'm like,
wow.
To me, that like blew my mind. So instead of looking at being a control freak as like this negative thing, dude, I'm so thankful of it. It's really helped me. Now, how can I control that in a way that it doesn't affect people I love, and all that stuff. So that's what I'm talking about. So how can we take this knowledge graph of these clients, right? Because everything the client does in our platform, it's feeding into AI, and we're building a knowledge graph. And then that coach has access to that knowledge graph. And AI is going to synthesize that knowledge into something digestible for the coach. We know your sessions that you had with your client. We know what they're journaling about or whatever assignment they're doing. Now, let's take all that information, support your client between sessions with an assignment that's customized to them about Todd, about the content that Todd likes to create. Because Todd, I love podcasts. I assume you love podcasts as well. Now, imagine if your growth work is listening to a podcast about you versus, hey, Todd, I want you to read this book. And, and you're like, I hate reading. Like, that sucks. I don't have the time to do that. But now I'm going to create content about you in a form that you love to ingest content with. So
that would be super interesting, actually.
That's what we do. So
that sounds really cool.
Yeah. And then, listen, I work with the coach for a long time, and then, it can recommend other coaches within the platform based off of the things that might help me. So that's later on, but so we customize it. And as a coach, this AI platform is completely customizable. So if I'm an IFS coach and I also do somatic therapy, whatever, I can customize the AI to exactly my modality, whether it's one that's kind of off the shelf or one that I've customized myself. My experience and the client's experience will be based off of that one AI that they've created, customized. It's like custom ChatGPT.
It's very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So after awakening, what mistakes do men make when they try to scale their conscious business but fall back into old patterns?
Well, I think the biggest mistake they make is that they won't fall back into old patterns. And when they find themselves falling back in those old patterns, they get frustrated and they get mad. And they're like, oh man, I thought I moved beyond this. You never move beyond it. Dude, you will always fall down that trap. It's not about not falling down the trap. It's about when you do fall down that trap, you become very aware of that and the deeper meaning and the street sign that that's pointing to. So it's so funny. If you see me cleaning my kitchen, Todd, just be like, dude, what's going on with you? Because when my life's out of control or something's happening, I'll go into the kitchen. We have 5 kids. The house is always a mess. I'll go and start cleaning everything, trying to control everything. And I used to just do that. And then I'd get pissed that no one cleans up anything. Now it's like the minute I start cleaning, the kitchen, it's like, okay, what's going on? Where in my life do I feel out of control? Where in my life do I need to pay attention to? What part of me is, being triggered here? And it's just this amazing street sign. So I think that a lot of people, they start growing, they start going on the spiritual path, they start doing all the personal growth work, and then they find themselves doing the same things they used to do. Dude, yes, congratulations. You should be doing those things because that's your signal. That's your street sign. Pause. Okay, there's something going on. I need to figure out what that is. So you just don't get frustrated. Not about being perfect.
It's true because, a lot of us have this perfection thing inside of us. So you often say relationships are mirrors. What's one that showed you something you didn't want to face?
No, I mean everything, dude. like every interaction that I have where I get frustrated or angry, right? That is a mirror. And that anger is just a street sign, again, flashing, hey, dude, pay attention. There's something deeper here. Now, if I'm constantly looking at the other person and saying, hey, you did this to me, they're not doing anything. They're running their own script, their own reel, their own reality. And really my job with that anger is to say, okay, thank you. And then look within and be like, okay, what did that ping? So when a mirror is being shown to you, it's hitting one of 3 buckets, okay? The first bucket is a bucket of unhealed wounds. Okay. These are like childhood things that you grew up with where it might be abandonment or something like that. Another bucket is situational. Like I have way too many things on my plate. My therapist, Conchetta, calls them rocks in my backpack. And I love that because I can visualize that. It's like every time someone calls me, it's like, hey dude, will you do that? It's like, dude, another rock in my backpack. Sometimes I can handle it, but at some point, all someone has to do is say like, hey dude, I'm going to mail something to your house. Will you just hold on to it? That's all it will take, dude. And it will knock me over because my backpack is full. And all it took was that one little thing to be like, dude, fuck off. No, I'm not going to do that. And, and then I get really angry. Right. And so it's like, dude, so you have unhealed wounds, you have situational, just current things. And then the last bucket is learned patterns. It's like things that you learn when you were a kid and you see yourself doing those things, and it might not be an unhealed wound. It just might be something that you saw, you could have a parent who like every time they're in traffic, they just get angry, and they just start punching their, steering wheel. Is that an unhealed wound? Probably not. It's just, you just learn that, and so it's just being aware of those things when it happens. So I feel like when you are going down this path of the spiritual process, it's about awakening, it's about awareness, it's about the mirror that's being shown for you. Again, your greatest teacher is always your partner. So to answer your question, one of the I'll give you a recent one, for example. We have to build a new house, right? We either have to build a new house or we can go buy a new house. because our house burned down. We get insurance money. My wife was looking at a house that was more expensive than what we had. And I didn't want that. I don't want a mortgage. I don't want this thing hanging over me that I have to then work through, continue to work. I don't want to work the rest of my life, dude. It's like, I want to live in like a little tree house. Like I want less and less and less. And I was feeling she was wanting more and more and more. And instead of, approaching her and saying that, right, when she was showing me these houses that she wanted and all these things, and she was talking to the real estate agent, dude, I got mad, and really,
I can imagine.
I got mad. And so, and what did that do? That was shame for her. All the same thing over and over again. She like repeated. And really, once I sat with it, I was like, okay, what is that? Dude, it's that kid inside of me. I don't want to work the rest of my life. Like I don't want to have this mortgage that I have to pay off. I just don't want that stuff. Like I've been doing it for too long. And for me, it was this mirror of like, dude, I've abandoned that dude so many times. I've done what I think my family wants so many times. And who suffers? It's me who suffers. And, that anger really was like, I was just really angry at myself for doing that historically. And that's really the mirror. I wasn't mad at her. I was mad at myself looking historically at that's what I've done. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I was mad that I wasn't able to have the agency to say like, no, we don't need the bigger house. I want to be able to live within our means. So yeah, that was a recent one that not that long ago. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it just shows that there are always levels to it where I find that these every time you get to a certain level, the same thing that you conquered comes back again, but with a slightly different twist that catches you off guard because the way it was exactly the last time you smashed it. But it comes back with like a slightly different angle, throws you off, and there's like, whoa, 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 whoa. What's happening here? I thought I started this. And then it's like this small little tweak you have to make, and then you overcome it and you get to the next level, and it seems to be infinitum, and where it just never stops, right? So,
that's kind of the process for me too. Like now, whenever I get mad or anything happens where I get triggered or something, first thing I do is I just stop and I'm like, okay, what is this? Like, what bucket does it fall into? Is it situational where I'm just like overwhelmed? Is it unhealed wounds? This kid from my childhood that I got to go back and deal with again, or is it something that I just learned over time, just like kind of learned pattern. So, and then once I know what bucket it's in, then I can approach those things differently. So if I'm slightly just overwhelmed, situational, what do I know? Dude, I got to start taking things out of my backpack. I got to start saying no to people. I got to start putting up boundaries, if it's, an unhealed wound, instead of like getting frustrated at myself or like, oh, dude, why are you getting mad? Dude, you got to meet that with compassion and love constantly. Because it's like a balloon underwater. The more you push that unhealed wound down, eventually it's going to burst up. And that's what happens when you have an outburst, when you get angry, whatever it is. It's just that thing that you've been pushing down for too long and finally rises to the surface and like wants to be heard. So I just kind of have to understand those buckets so then I can start to understand, well, how do I approach this? Yeah. And what are my next steps to kind of dig my way out of this kind of, hole that I'm in?
yeah, definitely. So how can someone tell the difference between true love and attachment when both feel so intense?
Yeah, they feel very intense. So listen, you're always going to fall into attachment. We're human beings, just is what it is. Okay, so anyone who's like, I've never had attachment, I'm just like always true love. It's like, okay, like that would be a complete anomaly. You know that you're in an attachment when you're wanting something out of that person. If they do this, I will be happy. If they do this, I'll be unhappy. If only they could be like this. If only they didn't talk to this person on the phone all the time. If you're jealous, you're, wondering like, who's she calling right now? They're like, I'm going to look at her phone and look at all those stuff. That is attachment. That is you trying to own something, control something. Um, when you look at that person as your best friend, right? You don't care. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't affect you. That's true love. Like my cousin is my best friend. This guy, we grew up together, Dick Hillenbrand. He's just a gem. He's an amazing guy. Dude, I could care less what he does. He can go and talk to whoever he wants. I don't need to talk to him for a week at a time, 3 weeks, whatever it is. There is no attachment there. It's just pure love. But when you have a relationship with someone and you share your life with them, we just naturally go into attachment. It's what we do. It's so weird. But now I start to think about, okay, am I treating this person like I would my best friend? And the minute I say, no, I'm not, because I want to control what they're doing, or I want to control who they're talking to, or I want to, I want them to do something so I feel a certain way. That's when I know I'm in attachment. And the only person suffering is me. Literally. And that is what an attached relationship does. It makes you suffer. The other person, other person could be suffering if you're like a control freak and like, trying to control their life. But ultimately you're the one who's suffering. So does that make sense? What the difference between attachment and true love?
Yes, I would say it sounds, what you said is very conditional, because if they do this, then that happens or doesn't happen. So that if is like the condition that you have, like in mathematics.
Exactly.
So very much sounds like that to me.
Dude, that is the perfect way to say it. If you're like, oh, I unconditionally love this person, but if she doesn't text you back right away, you start to get pissed. You're like, oh, why isn't she texting you back right? Like my wife and I do this. Like, dude, if you text me, boom, I get back to you instantly. My wife never has her phone on her, probably off half the time. So I'll text her something, and then by the time she turns it on, she might not even reply to me, and I get it. It used to just make me so angry. What did that tell me though? It told me that I wasn't important for her, because if you text me, I'm going to text you back. If I don't text you back, it's because I don't want to text you back. And so I was putting my lens on the situation, creating my own reality, saying, well, if you cared about me, then you would text me back. That's just how I look at texting. The reality is she hates texting. She doesn't want to be on her phone. Right. And so, that is not unconditional love. It's conditional. If you text me back, I will treat you nice and I will be nice to you. Because what did I do? When she wouldn't text me back, I'd be cold to her. I'd protect myself. It's just what we do as men. It's like, oh, I'm going to make sure you don't hurt me. So I'm going to kind of be cold to you or stuff like that. That's not condition. That's not unconditional love. That's conditional. If you're nice to me, if you text me, if you do these different things, I'm going to love you and I'm going to be kind to you. But if you don't, then I'm going to be cold to you. That's conditional. So you know it.
Yeah. So how has fatherhood shifted your relationship to vulnerability and your inner child?
A lot, man. Listen, I grew up with a very, confident father who was, he didn't really, he wasn't able to access his emotions like I couldn't, and so I think that was but he was an incredible father. His word was gold, right? And that's kind of how I was as a father. Like I felt like my job was to work hard, show them what a hard worker is, so they can be productive in their life. And but I realized that I was living in fear, right? Fear that they wouldn't be successful, fear that they would become drug addicts, fear whatever it was. And so, my son during COVID, his mom was an alcoholic. Schools were closed. There was COVID, and he wasn't reaching his full potential. And he was doing things. He was in high school, and he was doing things. I was like, dude, come on! Like I was trying to encourage him. He was just giving up on school and all these different things. And I didn't see that. Listen, dude was having a hard time. He was just having a hard time, and all he needed was to know that I love him. I was encouraging him in probably not ways that he felt that as love. It's like judgment. And at that time, dude, that's when I went and did iboga. And instantly, as soon as iboga started, I just saw his face appear in front of me. No words, no nothing. I saw his face. And with Iboga, it's not like ayahuasca, you see stuff and you're like, what does that mean? Like a month later, you're like, what the hell was that? There is none of that with Iboga. You see his face, instantly you know exactly what that means. You have the internal dialogue. The stern father comes in and says, this is where you're messing up. This is what's happening. And this is why your relationship's not going the way it should. And I saw that and I was just like, oh yeah, I'm not giving him the love. All he needs is love. And then we went to the scene changed, and I saw the two of us standing on the bluffs by our house in the Pacific Palisades. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, dude, I just love you so much, and I'm so sorry for the way I've treated you. You know, I was trying to encourage you, and it wasn't helpful. And I just love you, and I'm crying, and he's crying, and then it starts looping, and I see that scene over and over again. You know, when you're in psychedelics and there's like this loop, there was that loop, and I was like, it was just too much for me to handle, dude. It was too emotional. I just couldn't see it anymore. After the 100th time, I was like, I can't see this anymore. And
Wow.
it was at that moment when I think, you know, the medicine just like, okay, now you understand. And it went away. Right. Well, I came home a few days later and I landed, I drove to our house. I grabbed him. I went to those bluffs and we had the exact same conversation that was in my Iboga ceremony. He's crying, I'm crying. And it changed my relationship with him, changed my relationship with all my kids. And it was the most beautiful thing. But
wow.
You know, yeah. So psychedelics, all this growth, what it just taught me is, dude, your kids just need to know you love them. They're going to be awesome regardless of what happens. Frankly, all you can do is fuck them up. So just don't fuck them up. Just give them love. That's all they need, you know? And so yeah, it was amazing.
Very, very beautiful story. So what does surrender mean to you now compared to when you first began this path?
Yeah, I mean, like when that shaman said to me, like, you need to learn to surrender, dude, I didn't even know what surrender meant. Like to me, it felt like weakness, failure, giving up, all those different. Little did I know that from that moment he said that, my entire journey was going to be a journey of surrender. And surrender to me is realizing that there is a universe that is pushing you and pulling you out of your comfort zone into discomfort and into growth. And, you know, trusting that, like, yeah, the thing that you're about to do might be painful and it might be scary, but dude, on the other end of that is the most incredible growth you'll ever experience. And that is the trust that I have now. Like, for example, sold my company, I was successful. What happened? Did I buy the yacht? No, dude, I fell into deep depression. Thank God I did. If I had been successful, and I'd started other companies that weren't successful. If I had started a company when I was 23 years old and I had that level of success, I would be a complete different person. I would think that I am the master of my universe. And the universe gave me that challenge, and I feel like it gave me that success when it did at the perfect time. So I understood my life lesson, you know, and that really is, to me, surrender. With this new company, Evolve Well, dude, it could be successful. It couldn't be successful. I have no idea, nor do I care. Honestly, I don't care. It's not because I made money and I was successful. It's because I know that it's not really my doing. Yes, I am going to do everything I can to make it successful. I'm going to take all my skills that I've learned. I'm going to apply that. But ultimately, there's a billion factors and it's not up to me. So if it fails, fantastic. It is successful, fantastic. Because I know that it's the universe that's just guiding me during this path. Yeah. And people, if someone said that to me years ago, I'd be like, dude, that person is insane. And maybe it is insanity, but when you finally come from that place of abundance and you're just like, I'm here and I'm just going to do what the universe guides me towards. It's your intuition, right? You have this connection, this feeling with that is so powerful. But when you're so deep in control and you're resisting everything, you know, you can't feel that. But the minute you feel it for the first time, dude, you'll want that always.
It's true.
That's the challenge with the spiritual path is once you feel this, once you feel this, and then you don't feel it, because it's not about always expanding, always growing, always
True.
feeling that. You're not going to have that, dude. You're going to fall on your face again. But when you don't have that connection, you're like, oh, man, all you want is that thing.
It's like a drug, isn't it?
Yeah, the more you want it, it's like the paradox of seeking. The more you want something, the more you seek it, the further it drifts away.
You push it away. Yeah,
Push it away.
I totally battle with that myself. So I always have to. But this is why I take the medicine, because it gives me a reset where I can look to see, okay, well, maybe I need to just let go here and let go there, change this, change that, and then allow the growth to come back to me instead of me pushing and seeking it. So I do.
Yeah.
I think I think it happens to every single one on this path. Everyone. And is a cycle. And now I just basically like what you said. For me now, I'm like, okay, if I do well, Todd, great. If I don't do well, great. So there's a lesson from both. Yeah. When I did well, what was the lesson? These things are working. Okay. When I'm not doing well, what's the lesson? Okay. I could have changed this, and that. All right. I'm looking at everything as a lesson now. Let go of this, stop doing that, and then just let go and just trust the path. And
well said. Yeah.
Is this balancing of the energies walking in between realms that I think is really true mastery is, because you can get caught up on both. Like you can get addicted to the success and the growth. Yeah. And then when there's the slightest of no growth, it falls down. Then you can get hooked on there's no growth, and you keep spiraling further down. So then it's like, okay, you have to catch yourself to come back up. So it's this path it's a magnificent one, hard one, but you learn a lot all the time. That's for sure, I would say.
So I've had that experience. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and when I'm not growing, when I'm not expanding, and I feel distant from the universe, and just all those different things. What I do now is I just tell myself it's okay to feel this way. Period. I'm supposed to feel this way, and the minute I just give myself permission to feel that way, it goes away. I had this amazing. I don't know if you've ever heard of or been to a Joe Dispenza event, but
not yet.
Events, have you been to one?
Not yet. That's on my bucket list.
I did. There we go. My wife and I have been to like 4 of them. They're wild. Halfway through or part of the way through, you do a meditation for 5 hours, and
wow,
you wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. You meditate until like 8 o'clock, right, in the morning. And I was struggling. I was resisting. Like, if you ever want to make yourself suffer, go into a 5-hour long meditation wanting an outcome. Dude, I was like, I want a spiritual experience. I want all this stuff. Dude, I was making myself suffer. And it was like 2 hours in, I had reached my breaking point, kind of like the Temescal. And something happened, dude. And we were doing this really cool meditation with your eyes are kind of open and you're looking at this kaleidoscope thing. And I had a spiritual experience where I left the room and I was standing in front of source of everything. And I started asking her, I was calling her mother. I was like, and she was calling me child. It was so wild. And I was like asking her all the questions I always wanted. What is consciousness and why are we here and all this stuff. It was so cool. And I said, why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? She said, well, in order for you to feel, joy, you must feel pain. You can't have one without the other. And she said, would you like to feel the pain of the world? And I was like, yes, mother, I want to feel that. And dude, it was like she tapped me on the head with a magic wand, and instantly I felt all the sadness in the world. Every child that died. I mean, it was every war. I felt it was all consuming. And I'm sitting in there in this room of 1,500 people, not even in the room, but bawling, just like hyperventilating, just like overwhelmed, having this like out of body experience. And my wife, she was next to me, and and I just felt this hand on my back, like in the middle of this whole thing. And I was like, oh, dude, like even in the worst pain and sadness in the world, there's still love, you know? And that like gave me that spark of like, oh, there is that even in this darkest of times. Right. And at some point I was like, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. And she just, boom, tap of the wand. It all went away. And I didn't feel anything. And then she was like, do you want to feel the love of the world? And I'm like, yes, please give that to me. And instantly I'm filled with love for my wife, my kids, love for everyone in that room, love for everyone in that city, in that country, until my love literally surrounded the entire globe. And the minute it encircled the entire world, it was over, stopped. And I came out of that meditation with just the greatest awareness for why we're here. Dude, we're here to experience it all. Pain, suffering, the happiness, the joy, love. We're here to experience trying to get something and failing, trying to get something and reaching that. So wherever you are in your life, however you're feeling, dude, yeah, you're there, dude. But it's painful. It is painful. That's why we're here. Because it's in that we grow. And, you know, I had this experience during that meditation too, where I died and I went up to Source and all these other souls were there. And these souls are like, oh, dude, wait, were you on Earth? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you were a human? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, holy, dude, this guy was a fucking human. And they're like, only the most badass souls are human because you chose that. And dude, I can't believe you chose that, because being human is the hardest, but it's also the fastest way to grow. And that's why people do it. But only the most badass souls choose to be human. And dude, I just came out of that whole meditation. I was like, yeah, dude, I'm here to fucking experience all of it. And I came here to grow, and I'm here for a purpose. And, you know, why would I sit on the couch and let life pass me by? Why would I wait for a day that, you know, maybe that might come? No, dude, fucking stand up. Take this life by the balls. Fucking fail hard. Win greater than anyone else. Just do everything why your soul came here to do. Because if your soul looked down at you and you're just sitting on the couch doing nothing, your soul would be like, what the fuck, man? I chose this and you're sitting on the couch. Why are you sitting on the couch? Get up and fucking go for it. Because that's why your soul chose this life. You know? And yeah, it's going to be hard, but while you're here.
So with that said, if a man is at rock bottom, what's the one shift that can move him from survival to his highest potential?
Yeah. So when you're at rock bottom, dude, you're in the survival brain. All the creativity's gone. Everything's gone, right? You need to quiet the mind. For me, it's breath work and meditation. Find your path. Find whatever practice works for you. Now, when you're looking on YouTube, looking for that path, that voice in your head that wants to keep you stuck in that identity is going to be like, dude, this is worthless. You're not going to find anything. This ain't going to help you. That dude that you heard on the podcast is a complete idiot. Your mind is working against you because your body wants to continue to feel this way because it's addicted to that feeling. So you need to you just need to become a third person in this relationship. Your mind and your body, they're complete idiots. You need to step away from it. And you just have to know what you want to do. Transformation takes dedication. I don't want to wake up and do cold plunge and breath work and meditation every day. I just don't want to. My mind is always like, dude, don't do that. It's going to suck. It's not going to be that great. You do it tomorrow. But I just know what I need to do. And by the end of it, I'm like so grateful that I had the ability to do that. So it takes dedication. You know that your mind's going to be running against you. It's running its own play. Your body's running its own play. So, you know, find something that works for you and just do it. And it's not going to feel good the first 2 days. The first 3 days, not going to feel. By the fourth, fifth, sixth day, it's going to start to feel better. But you got to keep doing it. Okay. And the other thing that you have to do, find people, dude. Talk to people. I mean, like, if I try to get myself out of a situation when I'm deep into it and I'm trying to think my way out, it's not going to work. Dude, find help. Find a coach, find a friend, find someone who's on a spiritual path, find someone on Instagram. Like, people reach out to me on DM all the time, dude. I reply to everyone. Find people. Let them help you get out of your situation. And just know that, listen, you're there divinely. You're there for a reason. It's gonna get better, but you gotta go through the shit, dude. I'm sorry, but congratulations that you're in the shit, man. Because, man, I'm serious. I always get whenever people fall on their face, I always get kind of jealous. So I'm like, oh man, you're gonna grow, dude. That's gonna be awesome, you know. And yeah, people are always like, that's such bullshit. It's like, oh, fucking, just wait, watch you.
It's true.
Watch what
it's
happens.
true.
Look at you.
It's
dude.
true.
Yeah,
It's true. It's true. I can. Yeah. That's just how it works. You have to have pain in order to grow. You know.
Yeah.
So
always.
let's get you on this one. What legacy do you hope to leave in leadership, relationships, and the way men do business?
Yeah, honestly, I guess my legacy, I don't really care, to be honest with you, but the legacy I want to leave behind, at least a little bit, is I want to help people become aware of where their decisions are being. Like, are you doing this company? Are you doing this deal? Are you doing these things out of abundance or out of fear? Constantly ask yourself that question. And if it's out of fear, dude, just take a pause and have the courage to make your decisions out of abundance. Because when you are, you're in alignment with the universe. When you are doing things out of fear, you're like the soul swimming upstream away from your mothership, the mother soul, right? And it feels weird. It feels not right. Well, that's your intuition. Start honing in. I feel like this whole journey is just really a journey of intuition. It's getting really good about your intuition. But that's it. You know, I feel like just giving people the awareness that they might be living their life out of fear. They might be making decisions out of fear. There's just a better way to do it, you know? And if you don't get there, great. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, that's why your soul's here. You either figure it out or you don't. Even if you figure it out, you got to do it again. Just one life after another. I mean, like, you know, I believe that my soul's had many incarnations and I'll have more in the future. And, you know, hopefully I can just I'm aware of so much of my shit. And my goal is just in this lifetime, work through as much of it as I can so that in the next lifetime, I'll find new stuff to have to deal with. But so I don't know if that's a legacy. I don't really care about a legacy, to be honest with you. But, yeah. But with my kids, I want them to just see the hard work that I've done, you know, and know that I love them. That's really all that matters.
Well, I always try to end on a positive note, which is why I ask questions like that. So, you know, I think that was very good because basically you're talking about, you know, finding your purpose and living, eating, and breathing it, because so many today are just doing things because it's just a job or it's just something to do, and there's no passion or love, because you can do things for money, you can get loads of money, and then when you do have it, it's like, well, what's next, right? And then the part that you didn't work on comes back, it's at a different level, and it is even more difficult to deal with. So,
yeah,
you know,
that's it. And I can observe you for half a day and tell you every one of your values. Your behavior dictates your value. So if you're like, hey, I want a job where I can help people and do all these things, but I look at you and you're working at some bank miserable, your behavior is that, the actions that you have dictate your values. And so your behavior is you work at this shitty job that you hate, but you do that. Why? Because your value is to make money, even if you're miserable. So don't complain that you're miserable at your job when you're doing the job. If you're miserable at the job, go do another job, you know? But if you say, I want this other thing, but my behavior is this, it's like, dude, okay, yes. And we need a job to survive. So everyone's like, oh, I need a job. I know we do need a job to survive. Everything, you ever notice this on social media? Every time I like say something, there's always like the extreme case. I'm like, I'm not talking about that. Yes, we all need money to survive. I'm talking about finding your passion. Yeah, it's like, but you know, I know what your values are just by your behavior. Change your behavior, change your values, or just be comfortable with the values that you have today. It doesn't really matter. Just, you know, be aware of them.
True. I think you said it very well. And Peter, this has been a very, very great conversation. Awesome conversation. So please tell the lovely people at the Conscious Man 7 podcast where they can reach you, any projects you have going on, anything you want to plug, where they can get your book, how they can work with you if you do anything like that, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been so much fun, dude. I just loved it. And I love the longer form, and it's awesome. You're killer. Yeah, so my website's Evolve Weird, which is funny. It's funny because that's the name of the book. It was going to be the name of the book, Evolve Weird, because at my company, Evolve Well, we talk about people's transformations, and we're always like, dude, that's so weird. People evolve so weirdly, and so my website's evolveweird.com, because transformation never looks the way you think it does. It's weird and bizarre. On there, you can find the book. The book is called The Remembering, A Journey Back to Self. Yeah, pick it up, take a look at it, dude. It's just, I love it. It's just been such a fun passion project of mine. And you can find me on LinkedIn. All the links are there, Instagram, TikTok. If you reach out to me, dude, I reply back to everyone. So yeah, reach out, and if I can help in any way, I love being just in the center of transformation. So if I can help in any way or give you any guidance, happy to do it.
Yes, and all the links to Peter will be in the description of this podcast. And guys, conversations like this are what we live for. And in order to understand more the principles that we talk about today, I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you would like to go on a fitness journey, you would like to level up in all areas of your life, mentally, physically, and spiritually, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. Send me a DM and let's see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army. And if you, would like to get some help if you're on a spiritual journey, or you already have started a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, again, hit me up on my socials, because I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. Because as this podcast has shown, and in this conversation particularly, fears and traumas are what determine your self-beliefs, your attitudes, and how you deal with your biggest challenges. So if you would like to level up spiritually, heal some fears and traumas, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook, and I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. And if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And I also have on one of those shirts today. It's called Truth Isn't Learned, Truth is Realized. So if you would like to support this podcast, get a cool shirt and be part of the Conscious Man 7 crew. Link will be to the Amazon store in this podcast. And guys, if you also would like to get some more direct access to me, and you would like to also listen to this podcast without any ads or stuff like that, you can join our Patreon or our locals. That also helps us to, spend some time and do some research and get some cool guests like Peter today. So a link to our Patreon and locals will be also in the description of this podcast. Peter, this has been an awesome, awesome conversation. Thank you for bringing raw honesty and wisdom today. To everyone listening, if this conversation sparked something in you, share it with a friend, drop us a 5-star rating, and let us know in the comments what your biggest breakthrough was. Don't just keep it to yourself. Spread it so more men can step into their power. And make sure you're subscribed, because the next episode is going to take us even deeper. This was another awesome episode on the Conscious Man 7 podcast, where we go deeper and further than most other platforms dare to go. With that being said, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.